Good afternoon. I'm Carl Devenbaugh in the Fox 6 studios, where we are following breaking news on this Monday after police in Posen, Illinois have arrested Morgan Geyser, the one of two people convicted in the Slender Man stabbing going back to 2014, who was released to a group home in Madison earlier this year until this weekend, when Morgan Geyser reportedly cut her ankle bracelet monitoring device and escaped, making it to Posen, Illinois, which is about 20 miles outside of Chicago, 170 miles from where she was supposed to be in Madison, Wisconsin. Now, we are awaiting a press conference with the Waukesha County District Attorney and the Assistant District Attorney, which should start any moment now. We're monitoring that for you, and we'll bring you the latest as they are now working, those different authorities, police and the DA here in Waukesha County, to bring Morgan Geyser back from Posen, Illinois to Wisconsin. As soon as that press conference begins, we will take it live for you here on Fox 6 and Fox Local. But in the meantime, let's get you caught up to speed as we have our Jason Calvi standing by in the newsroom. And Jason, the timeline for this, as we're seeing a few people step to the podium, let's actually get to that right now. And Jason, we'll check in with you on the timeline because I know you're searching for things after that. Let's get to Waukesha County, where the district attorney and the assistant district attorney are scheduled to speak. Let's listen
Nikolai are here today to go over Morgan Geyser's procedural timeline and potential next steps here with Waukesha County. Any investigative questions you have about what happened over the weekend in Madison should be directed to Madison Police. So I will bring up District Attorney Leslie Basie first to kind of talk about her reaction to what happened with Morgan Geyser.
Thank you, Hillary. And good afternoon, everyone. I just found out yesterday about the escape, Morgan Geyser escaping from her placement in Dane County. As Hillary indicated, I'm not here to talk about that investigation. My understanding is that the Dane County law enforcement is investigating her leaving her placement and what occurred after that. What we do know is that she left, she cut off her bracelet, she fled to Illinois, which is where she was arrested yesterday. Any charges, as Hillary stated, with regard to the investigation from her escape would be handled by the Dane County District Attorney's Office. We are grateful for the efforts of law enforcement, not only in Dane County, but also throughout the area, because obviously she was taken into custody in Illinois and is currently in custody in Illinois. In terms of what happens from here, there is an extraditable warrant for her arrest. We are verifying with Cook County, which currently has Ms. Geyser in their custody, as to where we go from here. Our governor's office is also in contact with the authorities to see how they can best handle getting her from Illinois back to the custody of Department of Health Services, which is whose custody she has been in since she was actually committed by the court. With regard to what happens from here, once Ms. Geyser is brought back to Waukesha County, it will be up to Department of Health Services whether they file a petition to revoke her conditional release. We are certainly hopeful that they do proceed with that. We fully support it. We support that she should be in custody. Not only should she have been in custody from 2014 forward, but also Attorney Nikolai argued vehemently for her not to be released to conditional release in, I believe it was January of this year, and therefore we will be fully supporting a petition if one is filed. Obviously, our thoughts are with the victim and the victim's family during this time. It's unfortunate, but we found out yesterday morning about Morgan's escape. Victim witness was immediately notified of this information. The director of the victim witness unit, Jen Dunn, did reach out to the victim and her family. We were told that they had not been informed prior to Ms. Dunn reaching out to them that Morgan had escaped. And I'm able to verify that when we spoke with the victim's family, or when Ms. Dunn spoke with the victim's family at 12:20 this afternoon, they still had not been informed by any other agency other than our own that she had escaped, which is very concerning. While she was on loose, we were very concerned about the safety of the victim and her family, as well as our community. We are continuing to assist them in this process. We are updating them, our office is updating them as to what is happening, but that certainly was a concern that they were not notified of this in a more prompt manner. What we know is that there was a period of time between approximately 8 o'clock on Saturday evening to when she was taken into custody yesterday, in which she was not monitored by any person. She was on the loose and her whereabouts were unknown. So we take this very seriously. Our office will not get involved again in this case until a motion to revoke her conditional release is filed. We will then go back to court. We will fully support that motion and that petition to revoke her conditional release. And we will then go before a judge to make a decision on whether or not she will be returned to conditional release or whether she would be returned to institutionalized care, which is where she came from. And that's all I have at this time.
Can you file that motion to have her revoked or not?
No, the state, we cannot, Department of Health Services, per statute, has to file that motion. She is in their custody.
Can you appeal to them or talk to them and request that?
We are in contact with the Department of Health Services, but ultimately it is their decision.
So in March, Defense Attorney Tony Cotton said that a group home would have more restrictions in place than Winnebago. Was the DA's office receiving regular updates on Ms. Geiser's time at the group home? And if so, what was that day-to-day like and monitoring like?
I do not know what the monitoring was like. I don't believe that we received any updates, although I would confer with Attorney Nikolai. We did not. Obviously, he was misstating the nature of the monitoring that was taking place.
So the warrant that you're speaking of, is that issued by Dane County or the state or?
The Department of Health Services did forward that warrant to our intake judge last night, and the intake judge, from what I saw this morning, did sign that.
So it's a Waukesha County warrant?
Correct.
Because DHS requested it?
Correct, and because the case is out of Waukesha County, that's why it will come back to Waukesha County for the decision if a petition to revoke her conditional release is filed.
All right, and I think that's a little why this is a little confusing because is there a criminal case in Dane County then? Is that a crime to cut your bracelet off if you're not under a criminal?
Certainly, again, this is a Dane County decision. As I looked at the statute, it looks like you can escape, be charged with a felony for escaping under a 971 commitment. Also, if there was damage to the bracelet when she cut it off, which I assume that there would be, that would be a crime as well. But again, that's outside Waukesha County's purview. That would be a decision. Law enforcement in Dane County, who leads the investigation, would refer charges over if they believed it was appropriate, and the Dane County DA's office would make that decision.
So just to clarify, I apologize.
No, that's okay.
The warrant that she would be returned to Wisconsin on would be a Waukesha County warrant. She would be returned to Waukesha County in custody?
That's what I believe, because it's still under the custody of DHS. But again, this is her home county for charging purposes. Therefore, I believe she will be returned to Waukesha County.
At any point down the line, could you guys press any other charges?
Not in Waukesha unless we have jurisdiction to charge crimes that occur in Waukesha, and because she was in Dane County, they would have the jurisdiction to charge any crimes that occurred in Dane County. With regard to the conditional release, her violations of that order, which were as a result of a Waukesha County judge ordering it, that would be what would lead to a petition to revoke her conditional release.
And maybe Abby could speak to this, I'm not
Yes.
sure, but what is it that concerns you about her leaving as far as her being dangerous, I guess, or a danger to herself or others, which was the standard, right, that the judge went by, or at least that's what he said at the time?
Right. I think that one thing that is very concerning to me is that if and when a petition is filed by the department to revoke conditional release, it will be the second one that is filed, because we were here in March on a petition to revoke conditional release already. And so it's extremely concerning that you would so blatantly violate a very, very simple condition, which is to stay in a placement and keep a bracelet on. And that we have no idea what was going on is extremely concerning to the state, because immediately my thoughts went to the victim and keeping the community safe. But as additional information is gathered, that would be the kind of facts that are put into a petition to revoke, and that would be what is litigated at that motion hearing before the court, when I'd be able to gather more information, whether there are specifics about the dangerousness. But I think those blatant acts in themselves certainly speak to the dangerousness there.
There have been reports that there was a person in custody with her, or in her presence when she was arrested. Do you know anything about that person, where they played a role in her absconding?
We do not know any information about that person. That was information we had received, that there was a person that was outside the placement location, but I don't have any information about that at all.
But Abby, you were concerned at that earlier revocation hearing about people that were in touch with her even while she was still at Winnebago, correct? People, outside people that were contacting her, influencing her?
Right, there's a certain notoriety here that is of concern, that there are people that kind of sought her out, that there was some concern about communication with those types of individuals. We also had concern at that point with what seemed to be kind of a pushback in terms of Ms. Geiser's acknowledgement of the extent to which she'd be monitored, in terms of my reading material is going to be, that didn't seem consistent with someone that was ready to make that next step into the community.
But you have no way of knowing if this person was one of those that you were concerned about, was in contact with her at that time?
I don't know.
Would all of this happening impact a future request for conditional release?
Certainly when those requests are made, I look back through the record in terms of assessments that have been done throughout the history of a case, and so I would say yes.
And just for the general public, I mean, because this isn't a sentence she was facing per se, but she still is under the control of the state, so there's leeway as to whether she is in custody or in state care in a facility or outside a facility, that type of thing. That's what you're talking about, trying to get her back to that previous level that she was in, inside Winnebago.
Right. Ultimately, if the petition to revoke conditional release were granted, she would go back to that institutional care placement, which would be a hospital facility.
Which is more secure, obviously, than
Right.
community-based facility.
Right, exactly.
Could you walk us back, just for clarity again, on the process of contacting the Leitner family once it was clear that Ms. Geiser disappeared?
Certainly. I can tell you that I was informed yesterday morning about Ms. Geiser escaping from her placement. Prior to me even getting notification of that, I believe Ms. Nicolai and Ms. Dunn, who's the head of victim witness, also received that notification. Immediately, Ms. Dunn contacted the victim and her family to make sure that they knew about it. They did not know anything about it. We wanted to make sure that they were safe and that they had a plan in place. And I know that Ms. Dunn has been in contact with the family pretty consistently since then, offering services. And again, it was verified before we came up here that in fact, no one did contact them. Again, I would have expected that the Department of Health Services would have contacted them to let them know. Obviously, we want to safeguard her safety and the community's safety, because frankly, when she's released, based upon some of the evidence that came out previous hearings, we have concerns about the safety of the community as well.
Just for clarity, she was at that group home for, what was the duration? Was it September?
The judge, the final plan and placement was signed September 17th, I believe, and I'd like to take credit for knowing that, but again, Attorney Nicolai is the one who put together the timeline, and that was the time. So when she got to the facility, we're not sure, but that's when the court signed the order for the placement.
Looking back, do you wish that there would have been more communication between your office and a group home like that? Is that something maybe moving forward you would like to see?
Again, we're not, once the conditional release plan was signed, we really are not involved in the case. The people, DHS, they're the ones whose custody she has been given to. They would be the ones that would control that day-to-day. And again, I don't know what that communication is. It could have been a daily communication. It could have been a weekly communication. I'm not sure. You'd have to reach out to DHS to see exactly what that consists of. Again, our goal in our position is to hold people accountable. Certainly that's why Attorney Nicolai had advocated for the conditional release not to be granted, because that was part of the accountability and keeping our community safe.
Do you feel like there should be some mechanism to notify families in a case like this?
Absolutely. I've reached out to already some legislative personnel to see if we can't address that issue. I think that that's wrong.
Any other final questions?
Thank you very much.
And you've been listening to the Waukesha County District Attorney Leslie Basie, along with the Assistant District Attorney Abby Nicolai there, speaking about all of the latest developments related to Morgan Geyser, one of the two people convicted in the 2014 Slender Man stabbing. As you heard, a lot of different layers to the legal side of things and which organizations will handle the process going further. After over the weekend, Morgan Geyser reportedly cut off her ankle monitoring device and left the group home where she was supposed to be in Madison, Wisconsin, eventually found at a truck stop in Posen, Illinois. That's about 170 miles from Madison, about 20 miles outside of Chicago. She was found with a 42-year-old friend at that truck stop, and now that police have her in custody once again in Illinois, she will likely be extradited back to Waukesha County, as you heard from the DA there, walking through the fact that, yes, she was in Madison, but because the original case stems from Waukesha, that is where things will now be determined for Morgan Geyser. We also heard a number of different updates there. The references to the Department of Health Services in Wisconsin and the question of whether or not that conditional release, which the assistant DA had argued against in a courtroom, which the DA was not interested in either, had been granted to Morgan Geyser. Now there could very likely be motions to revoke that conditional release, moving Morgan Geyser from a group home back to institutional care. Let's get to Jason Calvi in the newsroom now. Jason, we were about to check in with you before that press conference started, but the timeline of this is really interesting, and you heard it referenced there repeatedly from the DA, the amount of time that went by without people, including the victim and the victim's family, going back to the original Slender Man stabbing, not aware of the fact that Morgan Geyser whereabouts were unaccounted for. So take us through that and what you're looking into today for us.
Yeah, Carl, it was 11 and a half hours between the time when she was last seen at the group home and that 911 call was placed, according to the Madison Police Department. 11 and a half hours later, they were notified via a 911 call that she was not at that group home. So let's look at that timeline. Saturday night, 8:15 is when the Madison Police Department says that group home last had contact, last saw Morgan Geyser at that group home. Then about 45 minutes later, 9:30, the Department of Corrections got an alert that the GPS monitoring device on Geyser's ankle was malfunctioning. So that was about 45 minutes later. And then it was 11:30 Saturday night that the DOC contacted the group home. And then a staff member went in and checked and did find indeed that Geyser was not in her room and that bracelet was off in the room there. So then around midnight, DOC says there was an apprehension request issued for Morgan Geyser. So that was all Saturday night. Then go to Sunday morning, 7:46, someone from the group home called 911 to say that Geyser was missing. During the day on Sunday, we heard from Geyser's defense attorney, Cotton, posted a video on Instagram urging his former client to turn herself in. And then it was all the way at 10:30 Sunday night when Madison Police Department says they got confirmation that Geyser was taken into custody. Now, we're hearing from the district attorney in Waukesha County, where this Slender Man case originated from, and what we're hearing from her is she says she's hopeful that Morgan Geyser will lose her conditional release. They said they opposed it from the beginning, and they hope that this will be taken away. There's the whole process that she laid out in the news conference we just heard that will involve the Department of Health Services here in Wisconsin going through that a petition to have this conditional release taken away. The DA in Waukesha County says that they would definitely support moving forward with that, and they feel like she should have never been given that conditional release. Carl?
Jason Calvi covering that side of it. Jason, I don't know about you, but I thought a particularly astounding moment of that press conference from the Waukesha County DA was her saying that it was actually her office that contacted the victim's family. For all of that happening about 12 hours, again, since that ankle monitor was reported malfunctioning, the victim's family was not aware that Morgan Geyser was unknown whereabouts until that Sunday morning when the district attorney's office reached out. So I'm sure a scary situation for that family. Plenty of questions from the Waukesha County DA, Leslie Basie, and now we will get the legal follow-up as Morgan Geyser will likely be extradited back to Wisconsin and to Waukesha County specifically for what could be, if the Department of Health Services warrants it, a motion to revoke her conditional release to that group home in Madison. When Morgan Geyser was found by police in Polson, Illinois, she initially did not give officers her real name, giving fake names until finally telling them that she didn't want to say who she really was because, quote, she had done something really bad, and suggested that those officers could, quote, just Google her. That is the update now as Morgan Geyser again is in custody in Illinois. The Waukesha County DA hoping to be involved in the process, getting her back to Wisconsin, and then looking at that conditional release plan as well and the possibility of revoking that release. We will have much more throughout the day on Fox 6 and Fox Local as our reporters are around the area. You heard our Waukesha County reporter Brett Lemoyne asking some of the questions in that news conference. Jason Calvi looking into the timeline of what was not released and how those many hours passed by with Morgan Geyser's whereabouts unknown for so long. We will have much more throughout the day today on Fox 6, but for now, we'll get you back to regular programming.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hi, you guys. Welcome into the Wisconsin Live Desk. As you were just joining us, we were listening into some breaking news out of Waukesha County, hearing from both the DA and the assistant DA on the very latest with Morgan Geyser. Again, that was one of the two women involved in that Slenderman case many years ago. Yesterday was able to escape from her group home by cutting off her ankle monitor. We potentially might be going back out at some point to hear more from that press conference and bringing it to you again here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. But otherwise, there are a few different things that we're monitoring. I do want to let you know that our very own Brett Lemoyne, who was in that press conference, was even asking some questions of the DA there. Is going to be talking with another attorney later on in just about an hour or so that we will bring to you here live on the Wisconsin Live Desk to get another kind of legal expert's opinions on how this happened, what happens next, just bringing you the latest kind of nuts and bolts of this case. I know Carl was already there kind of recapping a little bit of that press conference, but if you're just tuning in now to the Wisconsin Live Desk, a couple of things did stand out to me. Specifically, they say that Morgan right now is in Illinois. If she's to be extradited, it will be actually back here to Waukesha County because that's where all of her charges were. People might thought she would go back to Dane County. That's where she escaped from, but they said no, she would be extradited here to Waukesha County. However, the only way for new charges to be brought about in this case would be out of Dane County because that is where Morgan Geyser would have committed a new crime. The Waukesha County DA there named potentially two charges that she believes might be applicable. So there's a felony charge for escaping, as well as there would be a charge for damaging the ankle monitor. Assuming that, since she cut it off, there would be damage to that device. But again, the Waukesha County DA said she cannot bring those charges. Only Dane County can bring those charges. But it gets tricky because she would come back here to Waukesha County, which was where the case was initially out of, which is where the initial stabbing happened many years ago. So definitely a developing situation here coming out of Waukesha County right there. A lot of monitor going on there. I'm trying to take a look at our feeds to see if there's anything else I can bring you in the meantime while we kind of wait for some new information on Slenderman. I do want to say there's this kind of, it's going to look a little funny because I'm going to talk about Sean Duffy and you're not going to see Sean Duffy, but at some point behind the reporter we're looking at, Sean Duffy is expected to provide some new updates with members of the FAA. That's slated for about 5 minutes. Typically it takes a little bit longer, so we are monitoring that here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Otherwise, in just a few minutes, we're actually going to be joined by our very own Fox 6 investigative reporter, Brian Polson. If you missed it last night, he had not one but two news stories that aired kind of breaking down, first of all, the difference between service animals and emotional support animals and how people are faking these different types of pets and for their own kind of advantage, as well as how people are able to get these ESA, it's an emotional support animal letter, without ever being face-to-face with a therapist, a counselor, a psychologist. It's kind of an epidemic taking over the country. We've really seen it grow in the last few years, where some people allege that it's an abuse of the system as a way to not have to pay pet rent if you're living in an apartment, or if your landlord says you can't have pets, this is a workaway around that. So he's been doing a lot of digging and investigating here on the situation in Milwaukee, and he's going to join us here on the Wisconsin Live Desk with the very latest. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break here, and then we'll be back with more news for you coming up in just a few minutes.
Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk here on your Monday afternoon. We're just about at 1 p.m. If you missed it, about half an hour ago, a press conference started out of Waukesha County with the DA and their assistant DA talking about the, first of all, escape of Morgan Geyser that happened over the weekend, as well as then her going back in custody in Illinois. There was a lot of things that stood out to me from that press conference. We are working right now to be able to play it back for you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. We should have that momentarily. But in the meantime, I wanted to just kind of catch you up to speed a little bit about this case. So authorities authorities first reported that this nationwide manhunt was going to be kind of going underway for Morgan Geyser. Of course, this is a Wisconsin woman convicted back in 2014 for her role in the Slenderman stabbing. We learned actually then last night at approximately 10:34 p.m. from Madison police that she had been taken back into custody in Illinois out of Posen, Illinois. That police department posted on their Facebook page a little bit more about that encounter, how they were able to find her, what she had to say, how they eventually brought her back into custody. I want to go ahead and bring in our political reporter, Jason Calvi, who's been following this case pretty closely. Jason, I know you were talking just a few minutes ago with Carl, but I wanted to ask you first, walk us through that Facebook post from Posen Police out of Illinois, because it's kind of an interesting encounter that they had with Morgan Geyser.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, when you look at this, we're talking about Posen, Illinois, so it's about 25 minutes outside of downtown Chicago, and we're looking at more than 100 more miles from where she was supposed to be in Madison. And when you're looking at that timeline, as far as who knew what when, there's a long and interesting timeline we can look at there. But the key points from the district attorney in Waukesha County, 3 points, is that she is right now, Morgan Geyser is in custody. She's in custody right now in Cook County, Illinois. So that's the key point, number one. Number two is the Dane County district attorney would be responsible for investigating any crimes regarding what happened with escaping the home, the group home, as well as the potential for if she did cut that bracelet off, is what they said. They found that ankle bracelet in her facility there in Dane County. So those would be the things that Dane County would be investigating. Waukesha County is also involved because that's where the initial Slenderman stabbings took place. And they fought very hard to keep her in state custody and opposed that conditional release. The judge did grant that conditional release for Morgan Geyser back in July. And so that's where we are right now. The DA in Waukesha County says that it's going to come down to the Department of Health Services, who has control, oversight of Morgan Geyser right now, to potentially ask for the courts to revoke that conditional release. So that would come through the State Department of Health Services, and then the district attorney in Waukesha County says they would support that, as they originally opposed releasing her at all on this conditional release.
And again, Jason, we are working right now to get that entire briefing, that press conference, to bring it back here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. But you were recapping a couple moments that stood out for you. For me, Jason, it seems like a lack of communication here. I know we were already surprised that it took so long for Madison police to learn of, this ankle monitor being cut off. But also, we just heard from the Waukesha County DA, who said the victim and her family were never reached out until Waukesha County did that. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things, and she said that was very concerning, that nobody from the state level contacted the victim's family. They said they were very worried. And we did get a statement before, this was from the victim's family, from one of the attorneys, and I'll read that now. Peyton and her family are safe and are working closely with local law enforcement to ensure their continued safety. The family would like to thank all of the law enforcement entities involved in the efforts to apprehend Morgan. This was yesterday that they put out that statement saying that they were safe. But again, right here, this is the end of this statement here. We want to thank the outpouring of support from family, friends, and well-wishers who have contacted them during this difficult time. So the family's saying it was a very difficult time in the midst of not knowing where Morgan Geyser was, and it wasn't until 10:30 Sunday night that Madison police said they got confirmation that Morgan Geyser was back in custody.
And Jason, I know your story today before this press conference was kind of figuring out what happens next. Obviously, it sounds like she will most likely be extradited back to Waukesha County, but those charges would have to come out of Dane County, as you were explaining. Is there any sort of a timeline to when we might see those new charges come down? If we do.
No, there's no timeline right now as far as potential new charges against Morgan Geyser. That would be handled by Dane County, the DA there, because that's where this all took place. So that's the timeline we're still working to figure out from the Dane County prosecutors there as far as what is their timeline. Again, right now, Morgan Geyser is in custody in Illinois, in Cook County, so she's not even here in Wisconsin, not in Madison or Waukesha County. She's still in Cook County.
I want to go back a little bit to the Posen Police Department, their Facebook post provided a little bit of new information as to how they got Morgan back in custody. They said they were kind of called out to two individuals sleeping on a sidewalk. Morgan Geyser did not want to identify herself at first and eventually said, you can Google me because I've done something really bad. But do we have any idea who that other individual was? We know there was a male with her. Do we know who that was?
We are still working to get answers on that, and that's pretty much all we can say. Do you have that tag board ready with the messages from the Posen PD?
We are still working on that,
Working
Jason.
on that, okay, because it'd be interesting to read that to folks straight through from the top to the bottom as far as what new information they're giving us about this interaction with who they say Morgan Geyser happening Sunday night and alerting Madison police that was taking place, that they had her in custody at 10:30 Sunday night. That, again, let's go back and look at Saturday, because you look at that timeline from Saturday, 11 and a half hours between the moment, the last instance she was seen at that group home to the time when someone called 911 Sunday morning to report that she was missing from that group home. And there's a lot that happened in those 11 and a half hours, and a lot of questions right now for the state about what exactly took place in those 11 and a half hours. So let's look at that timeline, Haley. First of all, 8:15, that was the last time that Morgan Geyser, this timeline I'm giving you is all from the Madison Police Department. 8:15, Saturday night, last seen at the group home. 9:30, DOC receives an alert that the GPS monitoring bracelet for Morgan Geyser was malfunctioning. So that was about 45 minutes after she was last seen at the group home. DOC gets an alert, the Department of Corrections gets an alert that ankle bracelet is malfunctioning on Morgan Geyser. 2 hours later, 11:30 Saturday night, the Department of Corrections contacted the group home. Somebody went and checked. They said, yes, actually it looks like Morgan Geyser is missing, and oh, by the way, her bracelet's here in this group home. So that was around 11:35 Saturday night. Then around midnight, the state issued an apprehension request, meaning if you find this person, please take them into custody. That was around midnight. But according to Madison Police, Haley, it wasn't until 7:46 in the morning Sunday that someone from the group home called 911, told them that Morgan Geyser was missing, and that's when, 11 and a half hours later, that the Madison Police got involved with this missing person.
Jason, I think that also what's so interesting about that timeline, you're talking there about 11 and a half hours where no one knew that she was even missing. Obviously, we heard from the Waukesha County DA saying they were nervous for the safety of the victim of this, but also for just the well-being of the community. So it's interesting that even knowing that there was a threat to public safety, it still took so long for that communication. Also, Jason, we're unable to get the Posen Police Department statement on tag board, but I do have it on my phone. So I'm going to go ahead and read this in its entirety, and then I would love for you to tell me what really stands out for you as you continue to news gather here. Again, this is from the Posen Police Department, posted on Facebook. They said last night, Posen officers were dispatched to the Thornton's truck stop at 14840 Western Avenue for a report of a male and female loitering behind the building. When officers arrived, they located both subjects. Excuse me, my phone just decided to jump that statement. Sleeping on the sidewalk. The female repeatedly refused to provide her real name and initially gave a false one. After continued attempts to identify her, she finally stated that she didn't want to tell officers who she was because she had, quote, done something really bad, end quote, and suggested that the officers could just Google her name. Once she provided her true identity, officers confirmed she was Morgan Geyser, who was wanted out of Wisconsin for escape after walking away from a group home where she had been placed. For background, Geyser was one of the two juveniles involved in the 2014 Slender Man stabbing, a case that received national attention. She was convicted in that incident and later assigned to a secure residential facility from which she recently escaped. The male subject with her was also taken into custody. Both individuals were safely detained without incident by Posen officers. They went on to say, we are proud of the professionalism and diligence our officers demonstrated in bringing this situation to a safe conclusion and ensuring that a wanted escapee was located and returned to custody. So Jason, what stands out to you about those details about the arrest?
I mean, everything, right? So there's this male that's with her. loitering. They're sleeping on a sidewalk behind a gas station. Thornton's is one of the gas station chains in the Chicago suburbs, at the Chicago area. And so they're sleeping, according to Posen police, they're sleeping out back. What are they doing there? And then this interaction with police where she, according to what Posen police are saying, she did not say who she was. She wouldn't give them the name. She gave them some false names and then just told them to Google her, that she had done some things bad. So that whole interaction in the body camera video that we'll get from that will be really telling as well.
I think it's also interesting, you know, Jason, when you're on the run, I think the last thing I would imagine doing is sleeping out in public, making it easy for someone to find me. So it's all just kind of interesting to me, this Facebook post.
Yeah, it is. There's so many new questions, right? And then someone called them in, or police had spotted them and started questioning them. What are you guys doing here? You've got a young woman with a man that might be older than her. So again, we're still waiting to find out more about that man.
Right.
But it's just a very interesting case in Chicago. Now it's gone across state lines, as now, according to what we're hearing from the Waukesha County District Attorney, she is now in custody in Cook County.
Also, just going back to that acquaintance, which we're working to learn a lot more about that male individual, the Associated Press does say that Posen police told them he is 42 years old, was charged with criminal trespassing and obstructing identification, and has since been released. So that's kind of some new information we're getting from the AP that they got from Posen police. Still don't know the identity of that man. But interesting in that press conference, which again at some point will be playing in full here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, they talked about people who are kind of infatuated with Morgan Geyser. This is a story that made national headlines. Her name was in those headlines. Talk to me a little bit about what we know about people in the past who have maybe really found an interest in this case, and as the victim and the suspects, including obviously Morgan Geyser here.
Yeah, so there's definitely people that, one particular person that was brought up during the trial who was in that age group in his 40s, who was in communication and with Morgan Geyser, and so that was brought up in this, not in the trial, but in the hearings regarding conditional release and whether or not it was a prudent thing to release her conditionally. Again, the Waukesha County District Attorney at the time had brought up these things and said that they were very worried, they very much opposed the release, and now they're hoping that the Department of Health Services here in Wisconsin will move forward with a petition to revoke that conditional release so that she will then be back in a medical institution that can monitor her and keep her in a particular location.
Have we heard anything from the group home where Morgan Geyser was and where she escaped from?
I haven't heard anything from them other than, according to Madison police, it was someone in the group home that called 911 to report that she was missing on Sunday, 11 and a half hours after, according to Madison police, she was last seen, and about 10 and a half hours after that GPS monitoring device was malfunctioning, according to Madison police as well.
Jason, while people join us right now, I know we're kind of in the middle of talking about Morgan Geyser's escape, now back in police custody. Let's actually go back. Can you give us kind of all the information we need about Slenderman case and how we got to where we are today?
Yeah, so this was a story from 2014. You had Morgan Geyser and her co-defendant were 12 years old when they, it's hard even to say it out loud, but attacked and stabbed one of their classmates, and they were 12 years old at the time of this attack. They both were said that they, because of mental health issues, that they were not liable for this criminally, and so that's what played out in the court system. And so now the co-defendant was released in 2021 under ankle bracelet, as well as being taken by her father. And then the question had been playing out in the courts here, what should happen to Morgan Geyser. And then in July, I mean, it's a long backstory of all the court drama, but it was back in July of 2025 that the Waukesha County judge had approved the conditional release, and that's where she ended up in Dane County in Madison. And here we are just a few months later, and Madison police say she escaped from that group home, cut off the bracelet, and fled to Illinois, where she was apprehended and right now is in custody in Cook County.
Obviously, I mean, I would imagine if we were to have the Waukesha County DA and the assistant DA with us, this was probably the worst case scenario for them, right? They pushed against it. Then Morgan Geyser was able to escape this conditional release program. Jason, and this is just me asking your thoughts, obviously, here. Do you think this could have an impact moving forward on when people are trying to get this conditional release program of, well, maybe not, because we've seen people escape from it?
It could be. I mean, it's definitely going to play a role if DHS does move forward with urging the courts to revoke this conditional release. So you're going to see this particular case of her, what she's alleged to have done, according to Madison police, escape the group home, cut the bracelet off, and flee to Illinois. You're going to see that be brought up in the court hearings regarding if DHS does ask for this conditional release to be revoked. So that'll be a big strike against her moving forward. But as far as other people are concerned, that's something I do not have insight in.
I was just reading quickly. We got an email from Brian Polson, obviously our investigative reporter. He's doing some digging into this as well, Jason, going to the DHS's website, talking more about this conditional release program. Specifically, though, he was looking into the victim notification process, because here, as we learned during that press conference, the victim and the victim's family were never notified by DHS or Dane County, only notified by Waukesha County. And he was saying that it appears there are only 4 circumstances that would prompt a victim being notified. 1, a court grants conditional release. 2, a court grants discharge from conditional release. 3, a not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect commitment expires. 4, the individual on conditional release dies. He says there is nothing that actually indicates the victim receives notification if the supervised person goes missing. That seems interesting to me, Jason.
I'd like to see if we can get Brian in the newsroom to talk about that research, because we do have a constitutional amendment in here called Marcy's Law, and it was something that voters very strongly approved, which does give certain rights to victims' families and to the victims themselves of crime. They have a certain voice in the court proceedings. They're able to speak out at not only just at sentencing, but at other points in the criminal justice procedures and hearings. They're able to have their voice heard by the courts as the judges and the like are making decisions as the cases move forward. So I'd like to know if Marcy's Law makes any changes to what Brian just laid out in that email, and it would be great to get him on to share a little bit more insight into when and where and what circumstances would entail alerting the victim that somebody that was involved in a crime against you, where this person was almost killed, stabbed, almost stabbed to death. The victim here, you would think that potentially that Marcy's Law potentially would give that person some rights to know right away that this person has escaped from state custody. I don't know. That'd be a question for Brian. But we did, again, hear from that family, and they say Peyton and her family are safe and working closely with local law enforcement to ensure their continued safety. And again, they refer to this as a difficult time when they found out that Morgan Geyser had escaped.
Sounds like we should just be a few minutes out from getting that press conference in its entirety, Jason, just to update anybody who is still waiting for that. We are still working on that. I think it's an interesting question. We're working on getting Brian to the newsroom to answer what you're posing there with Marcy's Law. I just can't imagine being the victim of such a horrific crime, as you talked about, nearly dying from this and not being alerted that this person has gone missing, but instead finding out what other people found out. Again, she is safe, and I think that is a very important detail to continue to pass along here on our coverage of this situation.
I feel like I should just jump in here.
Here we go. Here's Brian.
Oh, you're going to hand it off? I do.
Okay,
yeah. Okay.
So we're talking about
doing a live handoff right here on the Wisconsin Live Desk.
This is live TV.
Yeah. So we're asking when
or
the
live
victims get
streaming.
notified. And I'm curious if Marcy's Law makes any changes.
Hang out here, because Jason won't be able to hear you now, Haley, but I was watching from my desk and heard what Jason asked. And here's the thing, I don't know the answer to it. I think it's a great question how Marcy's Law might impact this. And I don't know if Marcy's Law envisions this part of it. This is sort of Department of Health Services rather than, this isn't the Department of Corrections, this isn't the Sheriff's Department or the DA's office, this isn't sort of a criminal thing, this is now mental health services for people who've committed crimes or been found not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. I just happened to send that email out because I think that, Jason, is really what's going to be interesting now is this is the way, at least according to the DHS website and according to the victim notification forms that victims fill out, when you have someone who is on this kind of mental health conditional release after having committed a crime, most often they're felonies, there are very specific times and only those times when they will notify. And it looks like it's sort of when the release is first initiated, when it ends or expires, if the person dies, things like that. But there's no mention there of what happens if someone just goes missing. So in a way, DHS might look at this and say, we follow the rules, but maybe there's no rule that says. I don't know if Marcy's Law says actually your regulation should be different here. I think that's going to be interesting to see going forward what this means. Did they drop the ball, or is there a shortage somehow or a shortcoming somehow in the regulations as to what that notification should be? So obviously more for us to figure out.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah.
Are you going to stay around for a few more questions?
I don't know. What do you want me to stick around, Haley, or do you want Jason back? Like I say, this is live streaming.
This is live streaming. Brian, do you have the ability to hear me?
I can hear you now,
Okay,
yes.
I wasn't sure if you were plugged into the IFB or not. That was my next question is, do we think this was intentional or do we think this is an oversight? And potentially you're thinking it could be an oversight that if somebody escapes, we're not in contact with the victim. Is that what you're saying?
I really couldn't say either way whether the way the regulations are set up, maybe this wasn't envisioned that you would have someone in this circumstance cutting off a bracelet and leaving. I don't know how you couldn't envision that as a possibility. I would think as a victim or victim's family who wants to keep track, that's something I would naturally expect, is if something like this goes wrong, you're going to let me know. Obviously, especially a victim who might face further threat or harm would want to know that this is the case. All I can say right now is what I just happened to see on their website, and that is that it's not one of the reasons given. Now, it could be that their common practice is to communicate other things beyond those minimum guidelines. But it doesn't say it in black and white, at least not on the form, not on the website, not what I saw there. I do wonder if that doesn't play into why the victim wasn't contacted, because DHS looks at their regulations. If they're following right on down the protocols and the steps and that's not in there, then maybe that was one of those they say, we're going to let the investigative agencies know, but it's not our job to tell victims. I don't know. I'm speculating right now. All I can tell you is what I saw on that website.
I appreciate you jumping on here in the newsroom after sending out that email. I know I thought that was interesting. I'm sure a lot of our viewers find that interesting. Certainly something that we will continue to explore here as we investigate this situation. Brian, we appreciate that. If Jason's around, we'll have him mic back up. But it does sound like we have the press conference that should be available momentarily. So we'll have Jason kind of rejoin us as we continue to work to get that again. If you missed it at 12:30, the Waukesha County DA and the assistant DA did answer questions from members of the media about kind of how this happened with Morgan Geyser being able to escape as well as now being back in police custody. If you missed it, we're going to bring it to you right now. It does sound like it's online, so let's see if we can watch this again together.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. My name is Hillary Mintz, and I'm the Public Information Officer here with Waukesha County. District Attorney Leslie Basie and Assistant District Attorney Abby Nicolai are here today to go over Morgan Geyser's procedural timeline and potential next steps here with Waukesha County. Any investigative questions you have about what happened over the weekend in Madison should be directed to Madison Police. So I will bring up District Attorney Leslie Basie first to kind of talk about her reaction to what happened with Morgan Geyser.
Thank you, Hillary. And good afternoon, everyone. I just found out yesterday about the escape, Morgan Geyser escaping from her placement in Dane County. As Hillary indicated, I'm not here to talk about that investigation. My understanding is that the Dane County law enforcement is investigating her leaving her placement and what occurred after that. What we do know is that she left, she cut off her bracelet, she fled to Illinois, which is where she was arrested yesterday. Any charges, as Hillary stated, with regard to the investigation from her escape would be handled by the Dane County District Attorney's Office. We are grateful for the efforts of law enforcement, not only in Dane County, but also throughout the area, because obviously she was taken into custody in Illinois and is currently in custody in Illinois. In terms of what happens from here, there is an extraditable warrant for her arrest. We are verifying with Cook County, which currently has Ms. Geiser in their custody, as to where we go from here. Our governor's office is also in contact with the authorities to see how they can best handle getting her from Illinois back to the custody of Department of Health Services, which is whose custody she has been in since she was actually committed by the court. With regard to what happens from here, once Ms. Geiser is brought back to Waukesha County, it will be up to Department of Health Services whether they file a petition to revoke her conditional release. We are certainly hopeful that they do proceed with that. We fully support it. We support that she should be in custody. Not only should she have been in custody from 2014 forward, but also Attorney Nicolai argued vehemently for her not to be released to conditional release in, I believe it was January of this year. And therefore, we will be fully supporting a petition if one is filed. Obviously, our thoughts are with the victim and the victim's family during this time. It's unfortunate, but we found out yesterday morning about Morgan's escape. Victim witness was immediately notified of this information. The director of the Victim Witness Unit, Jen Dunn, did reach out to the victim and her family. We were told that they had not been informed prior to Ms. Dunn reaching out to them that Morgan had escaped. And I'm able to verify that when we spoke with the victim's family, or when Ms. Dunn spoke with the victim's family at 12:20 this afternoon, they still had not been informed by any other agency other than our own that she had escaped, which is very concerning. While she was on the loose, we were very concerned about the safety of the victim and her family, as well as our community. We are continuing to assist them in this process. We are updating them, our office is updating them as to what is happening, but that certainly was a concern that they were not notified of this in a more prompt manner. What we know is that there was a period of time between approximately 8 o'clock on Saturday evening to when she was taken into custody yesterday, in which she was not monitored by any person. She was on the loose and her whereabouts were unknown. So we take this very seriously. Our office will not get involved again in this case until a motion to revoke her conditional release is filed. We will then go back to court. We will fully support that motion and that petition to revoke her conditional release. And we will then go before a judge to make a decision on whether or not she will be returned to conditional release or whether she would be returned to institutionalized care, which is where she came from. And that's all I have at this time.
Can you file that motion to have her revoked or not?
No, the state, we cannot, Department of Health Services, per statute, has to file that motion. She is in their custody.
Can you appeal to them or talk to them and request that? Or?
We are in contact with the Department of Health Services, but ultimately it is their decision.
So in March, Defense Attorney Tony Cotton said that a group home would have more restrictions in place than Winnebago. Was the DA's office receiving regular updates on Ms. Geiser's time at the group home? And if so, what was that day-to-day like and monitoring like?
I do not know what the monitoring was like. I don't believe that we received any updates, although I would confer with Attorney Nicolai. We did not. Obviously, he was misstating the nature of the monitoring that was taking place.
So the warrant that you're speaking of, is that issued by Dane County or the state? Or?
The Department of Health Services did forward that warrant to our intake judge last night, and the intake judge, from what I saw this morning, did sign that.
So it's a Waukesha County warrant?
Correct.
Because DHS requested it?
Correct, and because the case is out of Waukesha County, that's why it will come back to Waukesha County for the decision if a petition to revoke her conditional release is filed.
All right, and I think that's a little why this is a little confusing, because is there a criminal case in Dane County then? Is that a crime to cut your bracelet off if you're not under a criminal?
Certainly is. Again, this is a Dane County decision. As I looked at the statute, it looks like you can escape, be charged with a felony for escaping under a 971 commitment. Also, if there was damage to the bracelet when she cut it off, which I assume that there would be, that would be a crime as well. But again, that's outside Waukesha County's purview. That would be a decision. Law enforcement in Dane County, who leads the investigation, would refer charges over if they believed it was appropriate, and the Dane County DA's office would make that decision.
So just to clarify, I apologize.
No, that's okay.
The warrant that she would be returned to Wisconsin on would be a Waukesha County warrant. She would be returned to Waukesha County in custody?
That's what I believe, because it's still under the custody of DHS, but again, this is her home county for charging purposes. Therefore, I believe she will be returned to Waukesha County.
At any point down the line, could you guys press any other charges?
Not in Waukesha unless we have jurisdiction to charge crimes that occur in Waukesha, and because she was in Dane County, they would have the jurisdiction to charge any crimes that occurred in Dane County. With regard to the conditional release, her violations of that order, which were as a result of a Waukesha County judge ordering it, that would be what would lead to a petition to revoke her conditional release.
And maybe Abby could speak to this, I'm not
Yes.
sure, but what is it that concerns you about her leaving as far as her being dangerous, I guess, or a danger to herself or others, which was the standard, right, that the judge went by, or at least that's what he said at the time?
Right. I think that one thing that is very concerning to me is that if and when a petition is filed by the department to revoke conditional release, it will be the second one that is filed, because we were here in March on a petition to revoke conditional release already. And so it's extremely concerning that you would so blatantly violate a very, very simple condition, which is to stay in a placement and keep a bracelet on. And that we have no idea what was going on is extremely concerning to the state, because immediately my thoughts went to the victim and keeping the community safe. But as additional information is gathered, that would be the kind of facts that are put into a petition to revoke, and that would be what is litigated at that motion hearing before the court, when I'd be able to gather more information, whether there are specifics about the dangerousness. But I think those blatant acts in themselves certainly speak to the dangerousness there.
There have been reports that there was a person in custody with her, or in her presence when she was arrested. Do you know anything about that person, where they played a role in her absconding?
We do not know any information about that person. That was information we had received, that there was a person that was outside the placement location, but I don't have any information about that at all.
But Abby, you were concerned at that earlier revocation hearing about people that were in touch with her even while she was still at Winnebago, correct? People, outside people that were contacting her, influencing her?
Right. There's a certain notoriety here that is of concern, that there are people that kind of sought her out, that there was some concern about communication with those types of individuals. We also had concern at that point with what seemed to be kind of a pushback in terms of Ms. Geiser's acknowledgement of the extent to which she'd be monitored, in terms of my reading material is going to be, that didn't seem consistent with someone that was ready to make that next step into the community.
But you have no way of knowing if this person was one of those that you were concerned about, was in contact with her at that time?
I don't know.
Would all of this happening impact a future request for conditional release?
Certainly when those requests are made, I look back through the record in terms of assessments that have been done throughout the history of a case, and so I would say yes.
And just for the general public, I mean, because this isn't a sentence she was facing per se, but she still is under the control of the state, so there's leeway as to whether she is in custody or in state care in a facility or outside a facility, that type of thing. That's what you're talking about, trying to get her back to that previous level that she was inside Winnebago.
Right. Ultimately, if the petition to revoke conditional release were granted, she would go back to that institutional care placement, which would be a hospital facility.
Which is more secure, obviously, than
Right.
community-based facility.
Right, exactly.
Could you walk us back just for clarity again on the process of contacting the Leitner family once it was clear that Ms. Geiser disappeared?
Certainly. I can tell you that I was informed yesterday morning about Ms. Geiser escaping from her placement. Prior to me even getting notification of that, I believe Ms. Nicolai and Ms. Dunn, who's the head of victim witness, also received that notification. Immediately, Ms. Dunn contacted the victim and her family to make sure that they knew about it. They did not know anything about it. We wanted to make sure that they were safe and that they had a plan in place. And I know that Ms. Dunn has been in contact with the family pretty consistently since then, offering services. And again, it was verified before we came up here that in fact, no one did contact them. Again, I would have expected that the Department of Health Services would have contacted them to let them know. Obviously, we want to safeguard her safety and the community's safety, because frankly, when she's released, based upon some of the evidence that came out previous hearings, we have concerns about the safety of the community as well.
Just for clarity, she was at that group home for, what was the duration? Was it September?
The judge, the final plan and placement was signed September 17th, I believe, and I'd like to take credit for knowing that, but again, Attorney Nicolai is the one who put together the timeline, and that was the time. So when she got to the facility, we're not sure, but that's when the court signed the order for the placement.
Looking back, do you wish that there would have been more communication between your office and a group home like that? Is that something maybe moving forward you would like to see?
Again, we're not, once the conditional release plan was signed, we really are not involved in the case. The people, DHS, they're the ones whose custody she has been given to. They would be the ones that would control that day-to-day. And again, I don't know what that communication is. It could have been a daily communication. It could have been a weekly communication. I'm not sure. You'd have to reach out to DHS to see exactly what that consists of. Again, our goal in our position is to hold people accountable. Certainly that's why Attorney Nicolai had advocated for the conditional release not to be granted, because that was part of the accountability and keeping our community safe.
Do you feel like there should be some mechanism to notify families in a case like this?
Absolutely. I've reached out to already some legislative personnel to see if we can't address that issue. I think that that's wrong.
Any other final questions?
Thank you very much.
All right, if you are just joining us, that was the recap there of the Morgan Geiser press conference that we had at 12:30 from the Waukesha County DA and the assistant DA there, where they provided the very latest on Morgan Geiser's first escape from the Madison area yesterday to then being back in police custody last night out of Posen, Illinois. If you're just joining us, we have been covering this for about the last hour. Obviously, this is substantial breaking news. That is a huge case, the Slenderman case, which is what Morgan Geiser faced charges for as one of the two girls who stabbed another 12-year-old girl nearly to death back in, I want to say, 2014 to what they say appease that cartoon character Slenderman. So her escape yesterday certainly made national headlines again. You heard it right there from the Waukesha County DA, who said, I mean, this was a situation of potentially threatening of safety, both of the victim, but for the community as a whole. Again, she is back in police custody. She is currently in Posen, Illinois. There should be a court hearing Tuesday about her extradition back to Wisconsin. Again, according to what we just heard from the DA, that would be back to Waukesha. Even though she escaped from Madison, the case and all the charges and the time that she, the reason why she was in the mental institution, that was from a case out of Waukesha. So therefore, she would come back to Waukesha. Obviously, a big question, and we just heard the DA kind of address it as well, there is, will there be new charges brought about from this escape? Those would only be able to come out of Dane County. because that is where the new crime would have been committed, which would be potentially a felony charge for escaping, as well as another charge for damaging the ankle monitor. We're told that she cut it off, so therefore we would assume that there's most likely a level of damage there. We are very quickly going to take a break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, and we're going to go right back out to Jason Calvi, who's in the newsroom, working to get kind of all of this information, what happens next. He's really been covering this from the get-go. So we're going to take a quick break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. We'll be back in just a few minutes, and we'll jump back into actually some new information we're learning from DHS. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Wisconsin Live Desk.
Welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. It's Haley Spittler with you here. Time check for you this Monday afternoon. It is 1:42. I'll be with you here until 2:30, and then Mary Stoker-Smith will take over and get you guys to 3:30. But since the really beginning of today's Wisconsin Live Desk, we have been solely focused on the breaking news that is Morgan Geyser, who escaped yesterday out of Madison. She is one of the girls involved in the Slenderman stabbing case. She is back in police custody down in Posen, Illinois. We started off Wisconsin Live Desk hearing a live press conference from the Waukesha County DA. We then replayed it for you just moments ago, where really a lot of interesting tidbits came out of that. I want to go ahead and bring back in Jason Calvi, who's been breaking down this case for us and working on news gathering for the kind of nuts and bolts and what happens next with this case. Jason, we just finished before the break re-listening to that press conference. And I want to ask you again, what really stood out to you from what we learned from Waukesha County there?
Yeah, I mean, main thing right now is that she is in custody. The Waukesha County District Attorney says Morgan Geyser is in custody in Cook County, which is the county around Chicago. So that is big that she's in custody. It had been pretty much more than 24 hours that she was out of custody. If you look at the timeline released by the Madison Police Department, that 8:15 she was last seen at the group home. This is Saturday, 9:30 Saturday night. District Department of Corrections received an alert that Morgan Geyser's GPS monitoring bracelet was malfunctioning. Then a couple hours later at 11:30, DOC, Department of Corrections, contacted the group home and said, what's going on here? Somebody went and checked. They said Morgan Geyser was missing and her ankle bracelet was there at that group home, but she was not there. So that was all Saturday night. It was 11 and a half hours later, Saturday morning, 7:46 a.m., someone from the group home called 911 and said Morgan Geyser was missing. So that leads us to Sunday morning, when 11 and a half hours later, when the first time Madison police says they were notified that Morgan Geyser, an accused and stabber who back in 2014, her and a co-defendant stabbed one of their classmates, nearly killed that classmate, and they were released. The whole process here that I'm looking at in my notes, they were found not guilty due to mental disease or mental defects. So they were not guilty. Every 6 months, according to the state guidelines, and they get to petition for conditional release when they're under that situation where they're found not guilty due to mental disease or defect. They're under state custody. The Department of Health Services is the one who is in charge of that person when they're found not guilty due to mental disease. So the Department of Health Services is the one who is in charge of that person. They do partner with the Department of Corrections for supervision, so it's not the Department of Health Services wheelhouse, or special, they don't have the ability to do that sort of monitoring that you saw with the ankle bracelets, things like that. That is partnered with the Department of Corrections to oversee that particular part of this process. So that's that relationship between the Department of Health Services and Department of Corrections. Regarding the case of Morgan Geyser, the Department of Health Services is pretty much saying they can't talk. And the reason why, Haley, they say they can't talk is because they're citing patient privacy, that this person is a patient in their care, and therefore they can't confirm or deny anything other than what we can find through public records, through the court cases and things like that, about her conditional release and things like that.
I was going to say, and I think you're already kind of getting this, but before the break, we got in that statement from DHS, their response to you, where you asked them 3 different questions, one of them being that delay of 11 and a half hours. They sent back a lengthy response. To your point, in the first sentence, they kind of talk about patients are protected. Is there anything that you want to highlight here on the Wisconsin Live Desk from this very lengthy response you got via email?
Yeah, I did have 3 questions. So I think it's important that we get to the basics here and say, what were my 3 questions? These are questions that people in Wisconsin deserve to have answered, okay? And so we asked the Department of Health Services to answer these questions, and I'm going to go ahead and read them to you right now, and then we'll get to their very long, very lengthy response. So let's go ahead and read that, okay?
Okay, let's do it.
And by the way, my questions that I submitted were actually not the Department of Health Services. My questions were submitted to the Department of Corrections. But it's interesting to note it wasn't the Department of Corrections that responded, it was the Department of Health Services.
Yeah.
So here are my 3 questions. Why was there a delay of 11 and a half hours in calling the Madison Police Department to alert them that Morgan Geyser was missing and her monitoring device was malfunctioning? Question number 1. Question number 2, did the state actively search for Geyser Saturday night? 11 and a half hours go by before Madison Police is even notified that this is happening on Sunday morning at 7:46, when somebody, not from the state, but from the group home, calls 911, okay? Question number 3, what resources did the state deploy, if any, to try to find her on Saturday evening, Sunday morning? And then they give us this response, not from the Department of Corrections, but from the Department of Health Services. And it's very long, so I can just go ahead and summarize some of the key points.
Okay.
Point number 1, patient privacy is strictly protected. DHS says they cannot share information about a specific person if that person was a patient, where they were treated, their current status, because they're bound by patient privacy laws. So think about it this way. when you have HIPAA, your doctor can't go tweet about the fact that you came in to have a confidential conversation about an ailment that you have, right? You're protected, right? And so in the same way the Department of Health Services is saying they cannot share information about a specific person who is or was a patient because it would violate privacy laws, just like a doctor. That's kind of point number one, okay? Point number two is about the conditional release program. So she was released on conditional release. She was found not guilty by reason of a mental disease or defect for the 2014 stabbing of her classmate. Her and her co-defendant were found not guilty of that 2014 stabbing. So because they were not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect, they then go to Department of Health Services custody. And then this is interesting, every 6 months, those people in that particular custody who were found not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect are able to petition the court for release every 6 months. When released conditionally, like Morgan Geyser was the judge approved the release, the conditional release. That whole process took many, many, many months, but finally that release was approved in July of 2025, okay? And public records show that Geyser was granted conditional release. DHS is not sharing anything. They're saying this is all public information because, again, they feel like they can't release things about a patient under their care because of privacy laws. So, but they are pointing to some specific issues with the Geyser case in the public record that you can find in our reporting on Fox 6 over the last many years, as well as the last few months regarding this conditional release. Public records show that a client named Geyser was granted conditional release. DHS tried to have this release revoked before it began, but the court denied the Department of Health Services request to revoke that conditional release. That was something that played out in the courts this year. DHS cannot share further details because the documents were sealed. So their hands are tied, they say, because of patient privacy laws, and secondly, because the judge has sealed the documents in this case. So we can't go to the courthouse, request the documents on why did the DHS try to get that revoked this year. Those are all sealed by the judge. And then finally, the monitoring process right now. Alerts from GPS devices don't always mean there's tampering. There could be other reasons. This is, again, what DHS is telling us in their long response to my 3 questions to a different department, the Department of Corrections. They say GPS devices don't always mean tampering. They could be technical issues. So this is what the standard alert process looks like. When a device alerts, the Department of Corrections first tries to resolve the alert, contact the client. So maybe there's something wrong with the technology on the ankle bracelet. Let's contact the client. Let's try to resolve this first before, escalating the issue.
Yeah.
If the device cannot be fixed and the client can't be reached, then the state says the Department of Corrections checks the residential facility, and then in this instance that happened at about 11:35, where the staff confirmed that Morgan Geyser was there and that her ankle bracelet or GPS monitoring device was actually there at the group home, not on her as it was supposed to be, according to Madison Police. So that is when they were able to issue an apprehension request. It's a fancy word for a warrant. It's a particular type of warrant here that we're talking about. So when they couldn't find the person at 11:35, Morgan Geyser on Saturday night, about midnight, the state confirmed she was missing. About midnight, that's when they issued this warrant for somebody to take her into custody if they could find her. And again, it wasn't until Sunday night, so a whole more than 24 hours later, on Sunday night, that the Madison Police Department got confirmation from their partners in Illinois that Morgan Geyser was taken into custody. And we know from the district attorney in Waukesha that she is right now in custody in Cook County, Illinois.
Jason, it's interesting there, and I think what's potentially down the line going to become the conversation is, obviously this statement is saying they have to protect the privacy of their patient, but at what expense when it's potentially protecting the safety of a victim? And again, when we heard from the Waukesha County DA, she said that she was worried for the safety of the victim, of the victim's family, and really for the community as a whole when Morgan Geyser was not in custody. She was worried. But she also, and I wrote this down in quotes, said it was very concerning that the victim and the victim's family were not notified that Morgan Geyser had escaped and was out of custody for, I mean, more than a full day, or about a full day, I should say there. I'm curious what your thoughts are on the Waukesha County DA so publicly saying, clearly, in her opinion, something went wrong here. Sounds like the blame would potentially be on DHS because Madison police also weren't notified for, as you mentioned, 11 and a half hours. What are your thoughts on her speaking out, calling this very concerning?
Well, they've been concerned all along. They opposed this conditional release all along. They said it was a bad idea, and they said, look what happened. This is what we were telling you. She should not have, according to the Waukesha District Attorney, should not have been released, and this is now what happened. They're saying they're hopeful that the state will move forward in court to revoke this conditional release to then have Morgan Geyser put back into some sort of institution.
Yeah, I think for them, this is, and I said it before, their biggest fear when she was given this was this happening, and now it has come true. Again, Morgan Geyser back in police custody if you're just joining us. Jason, I'm going to let you go. I know you're going to now talk to our sister station in Chicago on this same case. But before I let you go, is there anything else you wanted to touch on here on the Wisconsin Live Desk?
I mean, I think that timeline is just really interesting. We did get the reaction from the Department of Health Services as far as the timeline and why there may have been delays. They're still bringing up that when a device does send out this alert, DOC tries to go through different things to see if it's just a technical problem that it's sending out this alert. But then again, it was 11:35 that they said the staff was checked in on Morgan Geyser, said she was missing. Bracelet was actually there at the facility. So again, it was 11:35. After all those, if you want to say, okay, is there technical problems here? They knew at 11:35 for sure she was missing, her ankle bracelet was removed. And it wasn't until about 11 hours later that we know that Madison police got confirmation that she was in custody in Cook County. So this whole day, what was the state doing? Again, those questions that I sent to the Department of Corrections today, what was the state doing from Saturday night up until she was apprehended on Sunday at 10:30?
I think it's a very valid question. I think it's a question, as you already said, I think a lot of Wisconsinites are wondering that. So far, no real answers, but I know we're going to continue pressing and work to get those answers. Jason, thank you for joining us, honestly, the last hour and a half here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. We really appreciate all of your insight on this.
Thanks for having me on, Haley. I appreciate it.
Again, if you're just joining us, we have been listening both live and then playing it back for you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, this press conference that came out of Waukesha County. We heard from the DA as well as the assistant DA about Morgan Geyser, who was able to escape from her group home Saturday night, make it all the way to Posen, Illinois, where she was eventually put back in custody by Posen police very late last night. If you missed the press conference, a couple of things that really stood out to me. First of all, she's in Posen. She'll be in a court hearing tomorrow to potentially face extradition back to Wisconsin. Now, the group home is in Madison. However, she'll be extradited back to Waukesha, according to the DA there. That's because that's where this original case was out of. That is, of course, the Slenderman case back in 2014. It is a case that made national headlines when two girls stabbed one of their classmates nearly to death because they said they were trying to appease this fictional character, the Slenderman. As Jason just said, they ultimately were found not guilty due to their mental kind of capacity there. However, they've been in institutes and then released into this group home back in, I believe it was September, that Morgan Geyser was able to escape from, now 23, found at a truck stop in Posen, Illinois, which, by the way, was found with another man that the AP is reporting is a 42-year-old man. We're working to figure out who this was. They have not been identified yet. All we know about the individual that Morgan Geyser was found with is that they were charged with criminal trespassing and obstructing identification. We're told he has since been released from custody. Again, Geyser is still in custody in Cook County, expected to appear in court tomorrow morning. Of course, here on Wisconsin Live Desk, Fox 6, Fox Local, we'll continue to follow all of these court hearings, bring you the up-to-date minute updates as we get them. So again, potentially be extradited back to Waukesha. not Madison. Then comes the question of, will there be new charges for what she has done? That cannot be decided by Waukesha, according to the DA. Again, we learned all of this in a press conference that happened around 12:30. She says she believes, from looking at all of the different kind of legislation out there, that those charges would need to come from Dane County. She says she believes there are 2 charges that would apply here. One's a felony charge for escaping. The other would be a charge for damaging her ankle monitor. Again, she cut it off. It was found in the group home after she had escaped. So you could assume there that there's some damage to that device. We don't have a timeline if those charges will come down. And again, it's an if. It's not up to Waukesha. That would be up to Dane County. So lots to still follow here. Our very own Brett Lemoyne was at that press conference. He is momentarily going to be speaking with attorney Jonathan Leroy, which we're going to bring to you right here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. So just stick with us. We're going to take another quick break, and we will stay on top of this breaking news here on the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hi, you guys. Welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk, where for the last hour and a half, we've been covering the latest out of Morgan Geyser, who was able to escape from her group home in Madison Saturday night, back in custody in Posen, Illinois, as of last night. I want to go ahead and actually, we're going to listen in on a live interview that our very own Brett Lemoyne is doing right now with Jonathan Leroy of Kim and Leroy. So we're going to listen in and get this attorney's kind of expert opinion on what's happened.
And she takes off. So it was shocking to me of what an opportunity wasted and so much time and effort spent by our state to try to rehabilitate. And really at the first available opportunity, she took off. So it was disappointing to me.
Because she had petitioned multiple times. Over years to be able to get conditional release.
Right, and she finally gets it, and then she takes off, and it wasn't a very good effort. She's apparently sleeping at a gas station. So what a poor decision in an awful situation, but a good ending. At least she's back in custody.
How I guess normal is it for a client to have petitioned that many times and then be granted a conditional release just in and of itself?
It's normal. I mean, everyone that's in that hospital on a conditional release wants out of there. Everyone is filing those petitions. You can do it once a year. So it's common for people to want to get back into the community. It takes a long time, though, because you have to prove yourself. You have to go through various stages within the hospital setting, and you have to prove to doctors and to others that you're safe to be in the community. And she worked so hard to do that after so many years, and this is a prime example that she wasn't ready.
So you watched the press conference with Waukesha County District Attorney Leslie Basie. We were there in person. It's kind of a complex situation now in terms of jurisdiction as to what happens next, right? Let's just kind of take it piece by piece to explain to our viewers who are watching us on the Wisconsin Live Desk now. In Madison, she faces charges for tampering with her GPS bracelet and fleeing, correct?
Exactly. So it is a criminal offense in our state to cut off your GPS monitor. And potentially escape as well, because she was in, essentially a commitment status. So she's definitely facing the potential for criminal charges in Dane County. Whether they charge her or not is up to the DA in Dane County. She's got other problems on her hands. I don't know whether they'll charge, but certainly there's some issues there.
Yeah. For people who don't know, this electronic monitoring bracelet, I'm sure you're familiar with. You've had clients probably that have had to wear them. Physically, what is it? What is the material? Is it easy to bust out of these things?
No, I mean, it's a big plastic box with a kind of a rubber gasket around. So it's got wires in it. So if you cut the wires, the moment the wires are cut, it sends a signal to the box that there's been a tamper violation, and that's where the department immediately learned that it had been cut off. And you can't just pull it off. You have to use a pretty large industrial type of cutting device to be able to get through it.
So in your perspective, this is over the course of maybe a day or hours, or I mean, it was a lengthy period that she probably had to get this off.
Or she needed to have the right tools to get it off for sure. I mean, a normal pair of scissors isn't going to cut this thing off.
What is life like in a group home like that? What type of freedoms does she have? Because we saw a picture that was released by Madison Police of her, looked like outside walking back into a building. When a individual, an offender is monitored in that way and they're in a group home setting, what does life generally look like?
Yeah, it's meant to try to acclimate a person who's been in the hospital or a jail back into the society. So there's ability to go to counseling sessions, ability to go maybe to a movie or do certain things. It's a way to allow people to experience the world in small chunks while being monitored by the GPS, to give them the ability to kind of extend their life a little bit. So she probably had a pretty good life there compared to being locked in Winnebago Hospital.
Okay, so that is what the Madison component of this. There's also a Waukesha County component of this as well, because this is where the offense took place, and she is potentially going to go back into Waukesha County Court to face possibly her conditional release being revoked. Is that correct?
That's correct. So DA Basie said that it's not up to her office, but she believes it's likely the department is going to file a motion to revoke her conditional release plan, which means she would be brought back to Waukesha County. The state prosecutor said that they would support, of course, a revocation of that conditional release. And if the judge revokes, which I would anticipate is very likely, then she would be returned to the hospital right away.
Now, you are not representing Ms. Geiser, nor have you ever been involved in this case, but from a defense attorney perspective, this seems like an uphill battle going forward. I guess what would you be telling your client right now if you were sitting across from them and they were faced with something like this?
This is such a a bad situation from a defense perspective. You work so hard to get somebody out and back in the community, and then this is the first thing that they do. She's lost all of her trust that she's built up over the years with her counselors, with the doctors, with the court. She is likely going to have a very difficult time convincing anyone in the near future that she's safe to be returned to the community again. So it's really a loss of trust. And for what? For really a one-day situation to be away from that group home. So from a defense perspective, horribly disappointing. And from the community perspective, it's disappointing. We want people to get better. People with mental health issues shouldn't be locked up for the rest of their lives. But in this situation, she clearly is posing a danger to herself or others right now.
And she wasn't alone. We should point that out too to our viewers that are just maybe joining us on the Wisconsin Live Desk. She was not alone in this. She had someone, an individual, an adult, who was on this journey with her, taking buses and whatnot down into Illinois. We don't know a whole lot about the background of this individual, but could criminal charges come against someone just being on a bus or walking around with someone who's busted out of a conditional release setting?
I think that's one of the most interesting parts of this story, and no one's reporting on that and no one knows right now, but absolutely, that person that was with her is in significant trouble. That person, assuming that they knew Ms. Geiser's situation and was aiding and abetting her in trying to leave and flee the jurisdiction, I would expect criminal charges could absolutely be presented against that person.
When you take a step back and we kind of review this whole case from afar, I mean, do you see kind of a rehash that will come for the Slenderman stabbing case once Ms. Geiser returns to Waukesha County? I mean, in other words, is this whole case going to be re-examined from top to bottom?
I don't think so. I think the state's going to be able to say, look, she's a danger to herself or others. She cannot be out in the community. She's proven that by cutting the GPS and fleeing the jurisdiction. The only safe place for her is in the hospital. I think Waukesha is going to make that limited decision, the judge in Waukesha, and is going to revoke her conditional release. And I don't think we're going to rehash the details of the facts of what happened originally. There may be some details about what happened during this 24-hour period because that presents why she's dangerous. Where did she go? Who was she with? How did she travel? How did she get the GPS device cut off? So all of those things will be brought up. But I think this will be a pretty quick hearing, and I think a pretty quick likelihood of a full revocation of that order.
I imagine, too, there's going to be a lot of questions for those doctors that gave evaluations of her over and over again throughout the last couple of years. As my recollection proves, I believe it was the same 3 doctors that had done the conditional release plan for her. What do you think is going through their mind right now?
Yeah, I talk to doctors all the time who have to make these decisions, who they're sometimes expected to predict the future, right? And that's unfair for doctors to do. They have clinical decisions that they have to make based on how she progressed through her therapy, how she's doing with medication management, how she's done with previous options to travel outside of the hospital. So they do the best they can, but no one can predict human nature. People make all sorts of bad decisions all of the time. But it was clear to me that the doctors did not make a hasty recommendation on Ms. Geiser. It took many years for them to support a release. In fact, remember, Ms. Geiser got released long after her co-defendant did, who was released, I believe, at least 2 years earlier. So it seemed to me that they did a patient and good job trying to assess risk. But at the end of the day, it's only our best guess. And Ms. Geiser blew it, unfortunately, and she made everyone look bad.
Yeah. Just as a final thought, as we wrap things up here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, I imagine for a young person who's going through and wanting to be an attorney like yourself, that this is a fascinating case. This would be an amazing case study to really dissect and go through if someone's watching, maybe like Marquette or whatnot, to pick. I mean, would you recommend? I mean, this must be something that a lot of up and coming attorneys are paying attention to and
dissecting.
Yeah, I love my job and I love working in this field. This case has been one of those amazing cases. First of all, it's been going on for so many years. It was such a unique set of facts as to what occurred, an awful stabbing of young girls at a sleepover party, and then all of these years of mental health issues and dealing with both of these defendants. So this has been a fascinating road to get here. I wish it wouldn't have ended this way. And from my perspective, I always want my clients to get better and to do better in their life. And I know Mr. Cotton does too. Everyone involved in this case wanted her to be better and do better. But unfortunately, human nature is what it is, and we're at this awful situation. But she's back in custody. It doesn't appear anyone got hurt, and maybe the hospital is the best place for her to be for a while.
Yeah, who knew in September? We thought this was maybe the last that we would be talking about Morgan Geyser, as she had that conditional release granted and was off to the group home, and now here we are with this really unexpected twist. Jonathan Lavoie, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it, and our viewers on the Wisconsin Live Desk appreciate it as well.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, if you were just joining us, that was our very own Brett Lemoyne talking with Jonathan Lavoie, an attorney offering kind of his insight and expertise into this case, which it's interesting, you know, Brett's last question there was about studying this case and something that probably does get the attention of other attorneys or students who want to become an attorney. For me, I always think of Alec Murdaugh, which was a case that I covered back in Greenville, South Carolina. But I think what really got the nation's attention with it was that it was a case that was a case inside of a case inside of a case inside of a case. There were so many layers and elements to it. And with this new kind of outcome with Morgan Geyser now escaping her group home and fleeing all the way to Posen, Illinois before getting back in custody, I think that's one of those things where now it's becoming that case inside of a case inside of a case, which really grips the nation's attention. Again, if you're just joining us here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, we've spent the last about 2 hours really going in depth on the very latest of the Slenderman case of Morgan Geyser, who was in a group home after being released earlier this year from the mental institution that she spent many, many years in. Again, this all stems back from the Slenderman case back in 2014, which involved Geyser and her co-defendant at the time, tweens, stabbing one of their classmates who was 12 years old at the time nearly to death because they said they wanted to appease this fictional character Slenderman. Again, they were found not guilty of the charges because of their mental kind of capacity. So instead they spent time in a mental institute. Again, just this year, it was deemed that Morgan Geyser could instead now go to a group home, but she would have to have an ankle monitor on. Again, what we have learned was Saturday night, Morgan Geyser, we're told, cut that monitor off, was able to escape with another individual. We're working to learn who that other individual was. All we know at this time is what the Associated Press is reporting, which they got from Posen Police, which says that she was found with a 42-year-old man who is charged with criminal trespassing and obstructing identification. We're told that 42-year-old man has since been released from custody, whereas Geyser is expected to appear in court in Cook County. Again, that is back in Illinois, tomorrow morning for a hearing which would have her extradited back to Wisconsin. Again, lots of kind of confusing situations here because she's in Posen, Illinois. She escaped from Madison, Wisconsin. That's where the group home was. However, because the original case and the original charges were out of Waukesha, she would be extradited, we're told, to Waukesha. Again, the other big question, we brought it up the last couple of hours here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, is would there be new charges for Morgan Geyser? At a press conference at 12:30, we did hear from the Waukesha County DA. She explained that from everything that she understands from looking in to the law here, they are not in Waukesha able to bring upon any new charges because the new charges, the new crimes committed happened in Madison. So therefore, it'd be up to Madison police to bring about any new charges to Morgan Geyser. According to the Waukesha County DA, she says it looks like there's 2 charges that would be applicable. One is a felony charge for escaping. The other is a charge for damaging that ankle monitor. Again, we don't know if those charges will be brought down. We don't know when they would be brought down. But again, that's kind of the next layer to what could happen next for Morgan Geyser is one, getting extradited back to Wisconsin, and then seeing if she does face any new charges out of Dane County. Obviously, that's where Madison is, where she was able to escape. Again, escaped to Posen, Illinois. It's about 170 miles south of Madison, Wisconsin. Found at a truck stop, actually sleeping on the sidewalk with that other individual, that 42-year-old man. The two of them were sleeping there next to each other on the sidewalk. They had kind of a bizarre interaction with police before they both were taken into custody. They released a Facebook post we read earlier in its entirety here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, kind of highlighting how she gave a false ID, then didn't want to identify herself, then said, you know, she had done something bad and that you could just Google her. Ultimately, police were able to identify her as Morgan Geyser, obviously saw the warrant out for her arrest, being that she did escape from the group home, and we were able to take her back into police custody. We are going to take a quick break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. When we come back, we are going to continue to cover the very latest out of this Morgan Geyser situation, the Slenderman case. We're actually going to get to hear from a reporter at our sister station out of Chicago who is in Posen with the very latest. Obviously, we've covered it pretty heavily from the Waukesha point of view here, from Madison. Now we're going to go across state lines to Illinois and get the latest from our neighboring state right there. So just stay with us. We'll be back in just a few minutes with that report. Hey, you guys, welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. It's Haley with you this Monday afternoon. Time check 2:22, and pretty much the last 2 hours we have nonstop been covering the very latest out of Morgan Geyser's escape. Again, she escaped from her group home in Madison late Saturday night, eventually taken back into custody last night in Posen, Illinois. And we're joined right now actually with Casey Cronus from our sister station who's in Posen. And Casey, you just spoke with the police chief there. Tell us, what did you learn?
Hey, Haley, that's right. Yeah, we just interviewed Police Chief William Alexander here in Posen. Like you mentioned, this is where Morgan Geyser was taken into custody last night. Now, to kind of paint the picture, Posen is a south suburb of Chicago. Took us about 30 minutes to get here, just to kind of paint that picture. And we are told by the police chief that when Morgan escaped her group home in Wisconsin, she and the man who she was with, Chad Mecca, they took a Greyhound bus to Chicago and they walked the rest of the way to Posen. So what happened last night is a clerk at a gas station, a Thornton's truck stop, called the police because a couple people were loitering, sleeping on the sidewalk, kind of out back by the dumpsters, but on the property of that truck stop. When police got there, Morgan and Chad did not want to give their real names, and Morgan even said to police something along the lines of, "I did something really bad and I don't want to tell you who I really am." Ultimately, the police pressed and they pressed. She ended up giving her real name and said, "Google me." And that is when they realized who she was and that she was wanted out of Wisconsin. Now, interestingly, the police chief here said when he got that call last night, the case sort of rang a bell, but he had to Google it himself. And it wasn't until then that he realized, okay, wow, this is a really big case. This is a huge situation. They brought Morgan, they brought Chad to the police department last night. They booked them here. And then this morning, Morgan was actually transferred to another county facility in Cook County. And tomorrow she will have an extradition hearing at 26th and Cal, one of Cook County's main courthouses and jails in the morning. She will then be, as long as she waives her rights, extradited to Wisconsin.
Okay, so Casey, this is very interesting because up until this point, all that we've known as far as this individual that was with Morgan Geyser was that he was 42 and a male. You are now saying that it is Chad Mecca. I'm curious, did the police chief tell you anything else about who this individual is or why they were with Morgan Geyser?
We don't know why he was with Morgan, what their relationship was, how long they've known each other, but he has been charged with criminal trespassing and with providing a fake name to police. So this man is charged. He was released this morning. He signed out. He was released under the Illinois Safety Act, but he is facing those criminal charges and will have upcoming court hearings, but police are releasing his name. We even have a photo of him that we will be including in our reports later today. Again, unclear how they knew each other, how long they've known each other, but his name is Chad Mecca.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I know there's a lot of questions as to who this individual was. Also interesting, some new information you're giving us is that they took a Greyhound bus to Chicago, then walked to Posen. I know you said it would be about a 30-minute drive, so I would imagine that's a long walk, which could maybe explain why they were found sleeping on the sidewalk, which we certainly thought was a little bizarre when we first heard about that.
Exactly. And one of our main hubs for buses is Union Station, which is right downtown. That's 18 miles from Posen. So unclear if they could have or would have walked that whole way. There are some other Greyhound bus hubs, including one at 95th Street, which is much, much further south. That would have cut their time down quite a bit. So possibly they took the bus all the way south and then walked the remaining several miles. I'm hoping that the police chief gets back to me. I've asked him to see if he could check on that tidbit and find out where exactly they were dropped off.
Yeah.
And, you know, one more thing, Haley, we don't know where they were heading. I doubt this was their last stop. It certainly could have been, but perhaps they were working to move further south. We really don't know yet what their end goal or final destination plan was.
No, that's another great question. There's still just so much to learn when it comes to this story. You kind of touched on this already, but I'm just curious. Obviously, here in Milwaukee, in Waukesha, in Madison, we know the Slenderman case. We know Morgan Geyser's name. This is now going across state lines into Illinois. Certainly a big enough case that I think people would still remember it from those national headlines. But how familiar do you think people in Chicago and Posen and Illinois really are with this case?
You know, this case is being remembered by a lot of people here because when we were in the lobby of the police department and we were waiting for the chief to come out, we chatted with 3 different groups who were just at the police station taking care of their own business. It's also the village hall and it's the fire department, so they all share one building. So we chatted with 3 different groups. We were waiting in the lobby for about 10-15 minutes or so, and they asked, the groups asked what we were doing here. We explained to them, and all 3 groups knew exactly the case that we were talking about.
Yeah, it's certainly fascinating. You have provided some new information for us here on the Wisconsin Live Desk after talking to the police chief. So Casey, we appreciate you so much for joining us, and good luck with the rest of your story today.
Thanks, Haley. Great to chat with you.
Yes, great to chat with you. Again, some new information that we just learned from Casey there. Jason and I talked pretty heavily about that 42-year-old male individual that Morgan Geyser was found with. The 2 found sleeping on a sidewalk behind a truck stop in Posen, which is where Casey was just zooming us from. Again, Casey now identifying him as Chad Mecca, getting that information from the police chief there in Posen, as well as telling us how they got to Chicago, taking a Greyhound bus all the way to Chicago and then potentially walking to Posen, which is about 18 miles, if I'm remembering what Casey said correctly there. So a lot of new information there, but still a whole lot of questions, including where were they going? Obviously found sleeping on the sidewalk, both back in, well, Chad Mecca is now back released from custody, but Morgan Geyser still in custody awaiting an extradition hearing tomorrow. So a lot of questions here on the Wisconsin Live Desk as we continue to kind of get new information in on this Morgan Geyser case, again, all in relation to the 2014 Slenderman stabbing, where Geyser and her co-defendant at the time stabbed their 12-year-old classmate nearly to death. Again, they were found not guilty of those charges due to their mental capacity, so instead they went to mental institutions, where Morgan Geyser, as of September, was released instead to a group home in Madison. And again, that is where she escaped, where she cut her ankle monitoring device late Saturday night and made it all the way to Posen, Illinois, before going back into custody. Again, she's now in custody in Cook County, which is in Illinois, awaiting that extradition hearing tomorrow. We are going to take another break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, and we'll have more news coming up for you after this.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. Time check for you now. It is 2:32. I actually want to get us out to D.C. Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary there, is providing some remarks outside the White House on that stakeout camera. We're going to listen into this. Then Mary Stoker-Smith's going to have you on the other side. You might have seen a cameo there of Mary. So we'll listen to Caroline. Then Mary's got you covered after this. I'm sure she'll have more on the Morgan Geyser case as well. But we'll listen to Caroline.
For 10 months now. So yes, you can expect that pressure to continue. The president wants this war to end.
Caroline, is the president more determined now, since the judge's ruling today, to go after James Comey and Tish James, and if so, why?
I wouldn't say he's going after them. I think the president is more determined than ever to see accountability in this country, yes, and to correct the wrongs of the weaponization of our justice system that we saw under the previous administration and Joe Biden.
Are we entering a new phase of Venezuela, and what does that entail?
Well, as the president is so good at, I'll try to be just as good. I'm not going to broadcast any actions that may or may not be happening with respect to Venezuela. I know I've been very clear about the administration's position, as has the president and his national security team. We view the Maduro regime as being illegitimate, and the president has been very satisfied with the successful strikes against narco-terrorists and foreign terrorists that are illegally trafficking drugs towards the United States of America. He's not going to tolerate that, and you can expect to see those strikes continue.
What was President Trump's reaction to those indictments against Comey and James being thrown out?
His reaction was, we've seen this before. We've seen partisan judges take unprecedented steps to try to intervene in accountability before, but we're not going to give up. And I know that the Department of Justice intends to appeal these rulings very soon, if they haven't already. I may have missed it.
Caroline, one question on Venezuela. Is there any plan, meeting for this week on Venezuela? And another one, a clarification on this weekend, because the president was asked about the former Brazilian president being arrested, and he mentioned that he spoke with this gentleman. Did he speak with Bolsonaro the day before he was arrested?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know if that call took place or not. It may have. I can get you a firm answer on that, Raquel. I know it's of great importance to you for your reporting. As for meetings on Venezuela, there's meetings on a range of topics inside this building all of the time. And the president is constantly apprised of what's going on in the world, what's going on in the news, and he's very well written into all of the things that his team are working on.
Caroline, please. You would not go into the sticking points of the disagreement between the two parties in the Ukraine peace process, but how flexible is the president in coming to a deal, and will the Europeans be part of a final negotiation with Zelensky?
I think he's been quite flexible already. We've been watching this war go on for 10 months. He's talked to both leaders countless times. Our team has engaged with both the Russians and the Ukrainians extensively. As I said, there is a sense of urgency. The president wants to see this deal come together, and he wants to see this war end.
I wanted to ask you, is it MAGA to support American workers being replaced with H-1B visa holders? Are Americans not capable of filling most of these positions?
Who supports getting American workers getting replaced?
I know the president mentioned that he wanted to bring in some workers that he could eventually send back in regards to...
The president does not support American workers being replaced. You are mischaracterizing what the president said. The president wants to see our American manufacturing industry be revitalized better than ever before. That's part of what he's doing with his effective use of tariffs and cutting good trade deals around the world. That's why he's recruited trillions and trillions of dollars in investments into our country. Those are creating good paying American jobs right here at home. As for the H-1B visa issue, the president has a very nuanced and common sense opinion on this issue. He wants to see if foreign companies are investing trillions of dollars in the United States of America, and they're bringing foreign workers with them to create very niche things like batteries. He wants to see that at the beginning to get those manufacturing facilities and those factories up and running, but ultimately the president always wants to see American workers in those jobs, and he's told these foreign companies that are investing here, you better be hiring my people if you're going to be doing business in the United States. So there's been a lot of misunderstanding of the president's position. Michael. I won't get into the details of the conversation this morning other than what the president put out on Truth Social. He put out his own readout of that, and I will leave it to that. But I did speak with him about the call. It lasted about an hour, and it was a very positive call. The focus of the call was really Russia-Ukraine did come up, but the focus was mainly on the trade deal that we are working on with China and those relations and how they are moving in a positive direction. President also addressed our farmers, and we are pleased with what we've seen from the Chinese, and they feel the same way. And the president and President Xi discussed continuing to stay in correspondence following their very productive meeting in South Korea.
On Ukraine, does the progress that you just laid out change the Thanksgiving Day deadline for Ukraine to come to an agreement, or does the president still want something more definitive by Thursday? And then on the Comey and James case, does the president still have confidence in Lindsay Elliott?
Absolutely, he does, to your second question. As for your first question, with respect to the deadline, the president wants to see this deal come together as quickly as possible, and he trusts that his team is doing everything they can to get it over the finish line.
Does the president support Israel's elimination of Hezbollah chief of staff Ali Taqta yesterday, and is he in favor of Israel blocking Hezbollah from growing again?
I haven't spoken to the president about that strike specifically, but of course the president supports Israel's right to defend itself and to take out any terrorist threats in the region. Jake? I know there's been a lot of reporting on this from yourself as well, Jake, over the last few days. I will tell you that healthcare is a topic of discussion that's happening very frequently and robustly inside the West Wing right now. The president's very much involved in these talks, and he's very focused on unveiling a healthcare proposal that will fix the system and will bring down costs for consumers. As for the details of those discussions, I'll let the president speak for himself. As you all know, sometimes you report things and then President Trump comes out with an announcement, and those things are not always true from what you hear from sources inside the building. So I'll let the president speak for himself. Sure, go ahead, Kara.
President Trump said he still views he's a fascist and a despot after they had such a great meeting. Any comment from the White House on that?
I think talk is cheap, and I think that the president is going to judge Mamdani by his actions that he takes to New York. The meeting was positive, as you heard from the president last week, and I think the fact that the president is willing to meet with somebody who said those types of things about him shows that he really is interested in being a president for all Americans, regardless of where they live or who their leader is. He wants what's best for New York. He loves New York City. He helped build the skyline. He spent his whole life there. And so he really wants to see New York do well. And so that's how that meeting played last week.
Caroline.
John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. There are a few Republican senators who are critical of the 28-point police plan, including Senator Rounds, Senator Graham, Senator McConnell. What do you say to those senators who say that this is giving too much away to Russia? And has Russia made any concessions as it relates to a possible peace deal concerning ending the war in Ukraine?
I would point any critics to the words of the Ukrainians yesterday, in which they said that they feel very positive about this plan. They've been very involved. They have had direct input on the language of this plan, and that we are in direct communication and correspondence with them. Any idea, let me just finish with this, the idea that the United States of America is not engaging with both sides equally in this war to bring it to an end is a complete and total fallacy. And I saw a lot of misinformation and rumors and allegations against people in this building, such as Secretary Rubio and Special Envoy Wynkoff and the President himself, that they are favoring one side over the other. That could not be further from the truth. I have watched as the President and his team have worked around the clock overnight with both sides on endless phone calls, endless meetings to try to bring this war to a close. And any suggestion otherwise is a complete misunderstanding of the facts. It's coming from people who have no idea what they're talking about, or people who are pushing their own agenda, or maybe people who don't want to see this war come to an end. I don't know. Maybe they're profiting off of it. Maybe they benefit from it in some way, but nobody in this building benefits from war. We want to see this war come to an end, and that's what the president and his team are proudly working to do. And I think the critics should just take a step back and think about what happened with Israel and Gaza. There were a lot of doubters, and we got the hostages out, and this president secured a peace deal that still exists and is ongoing today. So everyone should just respect the work this administration is doing and watch the process unfold. Thank you.
Should we cancel our Thanksgiving plan, Caroline, over Ukraine? I'm gonna be right.
Who are you? I know you still look good. You moved. I thought you were going to gaggle. Oh, could you imagine?
Good afternoon, everybody. Mary Stoker-Smith joining you from the Wisconsin Wild Desk. We just heard Caroline Leavitt there, the press secretary, wrapping up that press conference out in Washington, D.C. We want to bring things back here local to southeastern Wisconsin, specifically southern Illinois, where Morgan Geyser was apprehended late last night after 10 p.m. Here Central Time. We have some new updates for you. We know that Haley gave you a little bit of a briefing and an update with our former FOX 6 Casey Cronus down there in Illinois, and we are just being sent some new information. So I'm going to gather that information, and we also have some new pictures to share. I'll make sure that those pictures are up to speed and bring you the very latest. We'll take a quick break while we regroup, but we have some stuff to share with you, important information that if you've been following this case very closely, and I know a lot of you have, it's fascinating, you're going to want to hear this. So keep it right here on this Monday afternoon. We have a lot to share with you. I'll be right back. We'll take a quick break, and I'll see you on the other side.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage here at the Wisconsin Live Desk. It is Monday afternoon, 2:47, and for a lot of you, you have been following the latest details in the Morgan Geyser case. Let's take you back to the beginning, since I am taking a handoff from Haley there, who did a great job with Casey Cronus and recapping everything and bringing you up to speed. But some of you may have learned that over the weekend, Morgan Geyser, who was in basically a group home, was able somehow to cut off her monitoring bracelet, her ankle bracelet, and she escaped and was missing for days, several days. Morgan Geyser, as many of you will recall, was the center of the controversy here for so many years now, but she was at the center of the Slender Man stabbing that happened a number of years ago. Her and another woman, another young lady at the time, stabbed a classmate to, in their words, in their mind, please the fictional character Slender Man. And they were sent away, as you know, and Morgan was really appealing to try to get out, to get a release from, any custody. And we heard from Jonathan Lavoie last night, one of our attorneys that we go to glean information and some insight, and he said she was making substantial progress when it came to mental evaluations, wanting to be reintegrated into society. It at least appeared that way. But at some point over the last couple of days, she cut off the monitoring bracelet and she fled. And it was an all-out search for her. Nobody knew where she was. That is until last night, Sunday evening. And so then she was located in southern Illinois, in Posen, if you are familiar with that area. That's where she was found. So we heard from the police chief there in Posen, William Alexander, a little bit earlier today. He gave us kind of an update there, and we have some pictures in. We're going to put one up of Morgan Geyser to perhaps refresh your memory. That was her after she was taken into custody there. And so we got the update there from the police chief, who said that she and a 42-year-old man, Morgan Geyser, took a Greyhound bus from Wisconsin, the Madison area, presumably, to Chicago, and then walked the rest of the way to Posen. Quite a walk. It's a south suburb, as you know. And the chief at the time of this press conference a short time ago was checking to find out which bus stop in Chicago the pair was dropped off at. The man that she was with has been identified as Chad Mecca. He is charged with criminal trespassing and providing false information to police. He has been released from custody under it's called the Safety Act, but still faces those charges. So clearly he is not without penalty, and no doubt investigators will be talking to him to get any information that they can. As far as Morgan, who you see there, she was taken to a Cook County facility in Markham and then will be moved to 26th in California for a hearing that's going to be held tomorrow. So she's at a facility. Again, she'll be moved to 26th in California, where there will be a hearing tomorrow. At that point, we will learn more, but according to some of the preliminary information from that hearing, it's an extradition hearing, and it's scheduled there at the court right around 11 o'clock in the morning. And of course, we'll be there to cover that. Those things can be a bit fluid, but we'll be covering that hearing from the police chief. So back to this man, this 42-year-old that Morgan was with, again, Chad Mecca. The two, again, took that Greyhound bus. We do not know the affiliation between Mecca and Geyser right there. We just know an older man. We don't know for sure what the connection is for the two, how long that relationship has happened, how long they were acquainted, if they were acquainted long before this. We will be working to verify that information before we send it out to you. By the way, they took that walk, and that's about a 30-minute drive, about 18 miles there from the Chicago station where they were dropped off. And so, again, that was quite a hike there, and they were found sleeping, I believe, on a sidewalk there when police were able to apprehend them and figure out exactly who Morgan Geyser was. So we have been following this. It's just been one of those cases that a lot of you have been interested in because you have followed this throughout the years. And so it's been interesting to see the developments. It's been interesting to see exactly what this could mean in terms of the connection there, how she was able to get the monitoring bracelet off and then be on the lam, so to speak, for so many days. Because again, that was quite a time before she was found, from Friday to being detained late Sunday after police found her sleeping on the sidewalk there. It was actually behind a truck stop that they were, finding her. So it's interesting to hear some of the things that once the police were able to identify her and confirm that she was indeed Morgan Geyser, how they were able to do that so quickly. Madison police did notify all media, of course, area police agencies, of Morgan Geyser's disappearance. And once that alert went out, of course, people were on high alert there. So she was at a group home there, and at some point she cut off that GPS monitoring bracelet around 8:15 on Saturday. About an hour later at 9:30, the Wisconsin Department of Corrections received the alert that the GPS monitoring bracelet was malfunctioning, and that's usually a sign that, perhaps something is not quite right there, something is going on. Those things can happen, of course, but again, we just didn't know if that was something that was routine, it was malfunctioning, or if this was indeed perhaps something that she had cut the bracelet off. And it turns out, yes, she was able to cut that bracelet off from that. From her ankle there. So anyway, they received that call, and so that something was malfunctioning. And then at that point, they contacted the group home, and the staff did confirm that she had taken off the bracelet. And around midnight then, on Sunday morning, the DOC issued that apprehension request, but Madison police say the request wasn't relayed to them. It wasn't until about 8 o'clock on Sunday that somebody from the group home called 911 to say, yeah, Geyser is missing. And so she had ample time then to get out, to go to Illinois, to get on that bus and stay with that individual, the 42-year-old who we've been telling you about. So there was a long time there, quite a long lag. At this point, now that she has been found, I'm sure there will be an investigation into what happened there, how she was able to go so far for so long without that monitoring bracelet. But at this point, that's what we have. We're up to speed there. We do have some other pictures that we are working on bringing you, but it's been quite a couple days and quite a long search for her. But again, Morgan Geyser apprehended there in Illinois just not too long ago. We are beginning to get more and more information. We'll certainly learn more information tomorrow during that extradition hearing set for tomorrow morning about 11 a.m. We, of course, will be all over it, and we'll bring you the latest details. Working getting you those pictures, bring you another recap in a little bit. But when we come back, we are going to talk about what else is going on, and that's an important holiday travel week. Yeah, a lot of you heading out and about this Wednesday and Thursday, of course, to go to your Thanksgiving celebrations. AAA predicting actually Tuesday, tomorrow, will be one of the busiest travel days on record. A lot of people getting a 2-day head start. And I'm sure some of you are wondering, if we are on the roads, if we are taking a plane, especially with the government shutdown, is there still some trickle-down effect? Will we be able to get out on time? How are the airports staffed? How are they being monitored? And of course, on the roads and the railways, we'll be giving you an update on that. So we're going to take a look at that and take a look at the all-important weather forecast, because the weather experts tell us fleece, in my case flannel, heavy layers. We're going to need them by Thursday. How low will we go? We'll find out when we come back. Keep it right here on Fox Local. We'll take a quick break and come right back.
Wisconsin Live Desk.
So glad you're with us, starting your week off right here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Happy Monday, everybody. Are you excited? Thanksgiving just a few days away. Can you believe it? Well, it's certainly starting to feel like that out there, and I'm sure a lot of you are traveling, whether it just be, I don't know, up to Cedarburg or up to Grafton or, maybe down to Cudahy, or like me, over the river and through the woods to La Crosse. You may be staying somewhat local, and some of you may be getting on the train. You may be getting on the bus. You may be getting on a dreaded flight, shall we say, because a lot of people are concerned about the weather and will they get out okay. More importantly there, if you do have to be outside at all, of course, we always want to keep our eye on that. And for that, we bring in the gal, I say the gal, who puts the thanks and Thanksgiving. There she is, Stephanie Barrichello. Hi, my friend. It would help if I gave you a thanks and brought up your microphone. There we go.
All good, all good. I could not imagine having to press so many buttons.
Well, no, not at all. Before we get started, I have to ask you this because I don't want to forget. We talked about this on air last night. What is if you had to pick one, what is your favorite Thanksgiving side dish?
Oh, mashed potatoes.
Potatoes.
I don't even need the turkey.
Same.
2 helpings of mashed potatoes, I'm good.
My mom used to take the big blender. It was a big, steel. It wasn't a cast iron, but anyway, and she'd boil the potatoes all day, right?
Yeah,
And then take the mixer, the real deal. You don't see that a lot, but I like with the skin on it and all that good stuff.
Oh my gosh, it sounds amazing. With just enough butter and milk and salt.
Yes,
right? I know, some cut a little bit there, cut a little bit there. I need all 3 of those ingredients in mine. Maybe even if I'm crazy, a little bit of sour cream.
Oh no. What about garlic, now that we're getting fancy?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to jump in the bowl and just eat my way out.
There's just something about it.
Something about potatoes. Well, unfortunately, I guess is how you'd have to look at it. We're going to need those potatoes. I get some people like the cold weather. I really do, and good on them. It's wonderful. But for the rest of us who are like, it's just going to be such a change. I was out for a run today, rather mild, not going to stay that way, right?
No, sadly not. In fact, it's like Mother Nature waited to throw all of these curveballs until a holiday week. We actually have a decent amount to talk about, Mary, between today, some light snow Wednesday, that big temperature drop, and then it's still early, but the upcoming weekend. So maybe the travel back to Wisconsin, if you're heading outside of the state, could get a little messy. I think at this point, both Saturday, Sunday, we could have at least a little bit of snow, maybe a little bit of wintry mix. Again, it's still early, but that's more so the third thing we're looking at. But first and foremost, tonight, fog, some light rain, and then we're going to have the chance. You're good.
So sorry.
You're good.
Hello.
There you go. Nailed it.
You know what? Just getting the kinks out. Just everybody's awake. Good morning, good afternoon.
But you know what? This will ease you into the forecast, right? So tonight, fog, a little bit of light rain. Tomorrow is still going to be mild, but also a chance for fog and light rain. Then a cold front moves through Tuesday night. So that rain's going to then go through a transition of some wintry mix and eventually snow. So Wednesday we'll have flurries, a little bit of light snow here or there, very windy. We have the chance to see gusts well over 40 miles per hour. Now, first things first, if you are looking for a forecast for tonight, maybe you have to run some errands. I went to the grocery store on my lunch break. Yes, I did. Just had to get a few things. The grocery store wasn't too bad, but maybe you're going tonight. Make sure you just have the umbrella, travel, allow some extra travel time because of the light rain. And we'll have to watch periods of dense fog, I think, overnight and into tomorrow morning. So watch Wake Up. Make sure you're checking on those visibilities. Now, as far as snow goes, we're watching an area of some wintry mix up towards the northwest and parts of Montana. Take a look at this map. This is messy. These are all of the winter headlines as well as the wind headlines. So you know that this is a complex storm system. Most of the snow Tuesday, Wednesday will be north of us in Milwaukee. There are already winter weather advisories extending from Montana into northern Wisconsin, as you can see. But this pink is actually a winter storm warning where snowfall totals could exceed 6 inches. And again, that's Tuesday night into Wednesday. So if you are planning on traveling to northern Wisconsin on Wednesday, might actually be best to hold off until Thursday morning. I know that's no fun, but something to absolutely factor in because heavier snowfall is expected up towards the north. And then these are wind headlines. So I just mentioned how Wednesday here is going to be very windy. We're also going to get in on that part of the storm system. So this is what we're looking at here in the next couple of days. Now, first and foremost for tonight, that cold front's going to stay out towards the west for now. But we'll see a little bit of this rain inching its way in off and on tonight on into Tuesday. It's not going to be a washout Tuesday. We'll have some dry breaks here and there. I'm not terribly concerned with the rain. In fact, the steadiest rain will actually be with the cold front. This is late Tuesday night, so a period of some steady rain. Then this cold front moves through, really brings in that push of cold air, and we see that precip changing over to some flurries and some periods of light snow. So that'll be on and off throughout the day Wednesday. We're not going to get much here locally, but it's not out of the question, especially north of Milwaukee, to maybe see about an inch of accumulation on grassy surfaces. So I do think because Wednesday is such a big travel day, I don't expect delays at the airport or anything like that. But I think if you're driving, you really should make sure you're checking in on the forecast, checking in on road conditions. The wind, again, is going to be very strong, and we're really going to feel that drop in temperatures heading on into Wednesday as well. And then for Turkey Day itself, dry, thankfully. So the weather's cooperating for Thanksgiving, but it's going to be even colder. High temperatures, Mary, will probably struggle to reach low 30s. So just a lot of big changes, I think, as we transition from fall now into more of a winter setup the next couple of days.
Oh, expect that. So, in all seriousness, a lot of people want to decorate, before Thanksgiving. So you're saying Wednesday, if people are thinking about, I'll go out and get the lights out, probably not the best day Wednesday with the wind.
Yeah, I would take advantage of later today if possible. Maybe tomorrow in between some of those rain chances, because tomorrow's still going to be about 52, which is where we've been today. So we got to cherish these last 50s because the chilly air looks to stick around through at least early December.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people are thinking if it's going to be that cold, it'd be nice to have snow, but we'll just have to acclimate ourselves.
Yes.
So, yeah. Well, at least it's, not completely, unless you're coming from northern Wisconsin, not unbearable, and it sounds like the roads will be good. So really appreciate an update there, Stephanie. An early happy Thanksgiving to you. I'm working that day, you're off, right?
I'm working the morning.
The morning.
So
and
I
then,
won't see you in the evening.
Well, the good news is then, the girls will be taken care of, and your husband will be cooking, perhaps your in-laws?
Yes, we're going out to Waukesha, where my in-laws live.
Yes.
My sister-in-law will be there too, with my niece and my nephew. Perfect. We're going to have a fantastic time.
Isn't that nice? And you've been working, so, I don't have to cook. I'll just sit back.
Oh, funny how that works.
And be my lovely self. All right, love. Much love. Thank you, Steph.
Thank you.
We get a little personal here because I'm a big fan of Stephanie's, so obviously it's fun to hear what everybody's doing. What are you doing at home? Send me an IM message on my Facebook page there. You guys got access to it on the FOX6 fan page there. It's always fun to see, and it's always fun to hear. I will be working with Ted Perry that day. We haven't done a Thanksgiving in many years together, but we're going to be working. We do something very special here at FOX6 to show our gratitude for you, the people who are with us that may not be physically with us, but right here, you're with us in spirit. And so we do a little something special for you, and we also do something special for our colleagues that are really like family here at FOX6, especially when you've been here for a long time like I have. So it'll be a fun day. It'll be a good day. Good to get a heads up on the weather, though, if you are to be out and about. I got to tell you one funny thing. Two of my favorite side dishes. I'll leave you with that at the end of the show, but I got to tell you, I like going to the grocery store the days before. I kind of like that hustle bustle energy of everybody going to get their potatoes and cranberries and the sides and the stuffings and, oh wait, we need extra plates and napkins, that kind of stuff. I love it. I always have. Like, I make a point to go to the store Tuesday, Wednesday. So in between dinner break here, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday night, I'll just run out, see you at the Pick and Save. Save me a spot in line. For right now, save us a spot on your mobile device, however you're watching us, because we're going to take a quick break and come right back. We have other stuff to talk to about Thanksgiving, and we'll also give you a preview of what we're working on for tonight, 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10. Ted and I will be here all night with you, and we're going to tell you what's coming up. Keep it right here on Fox Local. We'll be right back.
Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Mary Stoker Smith with you on this marvelous Monday. Are you having a good day? I hope so. A lot of you are eagerly awaiting turkey. Yeah, most of you like it. Some of you don't, I know. I was talking to somebody the other day and they said, no, ham, it's all about the ham. So whatever you're serving, make sure it's warm, because we just heard from Stephanie Barkello, it's going to be a chilly day. And a lot of people like it like that. You know, we kind of tease each other because I always like it warm, but that is where we're at here in Wisconsin, and it's that time of year where we get a little chilly, and we certainly are going to be chilly that day. So if you do have plans, make sure that you bundle up. I know that there's a turkey trot that morning right around 9:30. I believe. I always think, oh, I'm going to go to it, and then it's frigid, so I always do a hard pass and jump on the treadmill or something before that evening meal or afternoon meal. So we'll have to see how that shakes out. But if you are headed out there to one of your local turkey trots, make sure you wear the long underwear, the silks. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit chilly out there. If you are traveling, perhaps you're driving, jumping on the train, jumping on a bus, perhaps flying. Let's give you a look right now at Mitchell International Airport. So quiet right now, but the TSA is expecting nearly 18 million people are going to be traveling this Thanksgiving holiday. So get ready for a lot of company. Get ready to meet some new friends. And as we always hear people, just be kind. Yeah, it can get a little snarly out there, as you know, especially if we do have weather on the back end. The busiest days, according to AAA, to fly, to do anything, to drive, are going to be the Tuesday and the Wednesday before the holiday, Thursday obviously, and then in the afternoon time is generally when people hit the road, particularly Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon, if people are kind of slow to get out the door or doing a, you know, maybe a half day at work or whatever. So just give yourself plenty of time. And also, of course, the Sunday after. I always think if you can avoid that Sunday, to me, that's one of the worst days to travel of the year, because everybody's trying to get back to work on Monday, which is December 1st already. So if you can avoid that. But for right now, luckily government shutdown is over. It appears as though everything is fully staffed. Our air traffic controllers are in place, and always quiet at Mitchell International. We are extremely lucky to have such a wonderful airport here in Milwaukee. I know when I lived in Philly, we always flew into Milwaukee because such a nice airport. Friendly, convenient, easily accessible, not a lot of delays. Just a great place to fly in and out of. That's my pitch for Mitchell International. Got to give my hometown airport, or my hometown state airport, a little bit of love. La Crosse's airport, my actual hometown, that's nice too, but harder to get in and out of. So we've covered the travel though, so give yourself plenty of time. And again, the weather. We also do want to talk about some of the things that are going on locally, because there are a lot of people who were affected by the government shutdown, and a lot of people looking for some help this holiday. Families to feed, things to do, of course. And we have a really good story we're working on for 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10 tonight. Actually, Durante Matthews is working on this, and he went down to Kenosha to talk about businesses giving out Thanksgiving meals. We've covered a lot in southeastern Wisconsin, a lot of agencies, a lot of businesses loading up trucks, putting pantries, helping out pantries, putting food in boxes to help put food on the table for families, particularly this year when there was such a need. But Durante went down to Kenosha, who has developed a partnership with 2 businesses there in Kenosha, the Family Piggly Wiggly, it's the Lois Family Piggly Wiggly, and Fancy Snacks Charcuteries, and they were basically making hundreds of meals, but they are basically looking at those 2 businesses, the Piggly Wiggly there and the Fancy Snacks, and they basically have about 50 meals left over that families can still get if they are wanting to get some family meals out there. So they have some left over, but just the fact that they're doing this, they're saying to help others, and that they're wanting to make sure that no families are going hungry, particularly kids. That's a really neat effort down there for those Kenosha businesses. So Durante is down there putting together that story. He'll bring that to us all night here on Fox Local. We also talked to another business, something that is very important, of course, as we remember our loved ones this holiday season. There is a cemetery that is foregoing or looking at a wreath shortage this holiday season. And so another way to give back, more of a symbol, of course, of our gratitude and remembering those who are no longer with us right now. Christina Van Zels is on that story, and so she's going to talk about the wreath shortage at one area cemetery, bring you all the details and find out what they're going to do to try to solve that problem and fill that gap. Will there be a substitute? Can we get the wreaths in time? Why is there a wreath shortage? Christina will answer all those questions for us. And of course, our big story that we're going to be recapping all day, Morgan Geyser now found in southern Illinois, or I should say south of Chicago in Illinois today, and we're going to bring you more details. We'll show you the pictures again, but was found close to a bus station with a 42-year-old man. We'll give you more information on him and tell you about her apprehension after cutting off her monitoring bracelet at that group home that she was in Madison, and her travels from Madison to the Chicago area there. We'll recap all of that. Brett Lemoyne is digging into details. Nobody digs like Brett, and he will have an update for us again, 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10 with Ted Perry, and I join you for all of our local news. We're going to take a quick break, recap again what we have on Morgan Geyser, the latest updates, and tell you about one more story we're working on for tonight. So keep it right here on Fox Local. We'll take a break and come back. See you on the other side.
Live Desk.
Back now with more information on Morgan Geyser and her apprehension just outside of Chicago, south of Chicago in Posen today. We want to bring you the pictures and we're going to bring you all the information, but let's do a little recap one more time. We're going to have the latest, of course, tonight at 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10. Our Brett Lemoyne is working on this story and bringing us all the latest information. But let's show you a picture, first of all, that kind of set this off. This is a picture that was circulated when authorities and the public at large was looking for Morgan Geyser before she was detained today. Morgan cut off, and let me back up even more, as many of you recall, Morgan Geyser, one of the two teenagers at the time who were part of the Slender Man case, and that is where they stabbed a classmate multiple times. I won't go into the details, but it was all to please the fictional character Slender Man. Morgan, we have been following updates on her, was most recently at a group home in the Madison area and really making a plea to be reintegrated into society. And as we heard from Jonathan Lavoie last night, one of the legal experts that we turned to, he had said, based on the things that he had read and all the things that we have been, of course, the media reporting, she was making progress. It would have appeared with her mental health. She was on medication, presumably still is, and just making progress in terms of recovering emotionally, mentally, and kind of helping herself be reintegrated into society. This certainly didn't hurt, or help rather. If anything, it hurt quite a bit. Saturday evening at some point, she was able to cut off her GPS monitoring bracelet. Authorities were notified that there's a malfunction. That's usually a heads up for something's not quite right. People at the group home there eventually found out she was missing, called 911, and that's when that set off the all-out search to find her. She was gone for quite a bit of time, from late Saturday night until she was apprehended late last evening. And so we got an update on that apprehension today from the police chief there, where she was apprehended in Posen, south suburb of Chicago, and that is the picture that they provided us that we were given after her apprehension. You can kind of see somebody right next to her, but we got this picture and we were told that what had happened is when she was at her group home in Wisconsin, outside of Madison, as I said, or in the Madison area, she and a man named Chad Mecca took a Greyhound to the Chicago area. They got off in Chicago and apparently walked the rest of the way to Posen. And then they happened to see a clerk at a gas station at a truck stop. They got a call to police because they saw a couple of people were kind of loitering around that gas station, sleeping on the sidewalk, kind of back out by the dumpsters there. And so police responded to that call, not knowing what they were into, but when they got there, they found Morgan Geyser and this 42-year-old man that she was with, Chad Mecca. We do have a picture of Chad. And the police said, yes, this is the man that she was with. We do not know anything officially about their connection, but at this point there, Chad obviously was booked, and he is going to be facing some activity there with the authorities, but also we want to make sure that we mention that Morgan has an extradition hearing tomorrow at about 11 o'clock in the morning. So the police chief there was just basically saying that what their relationship, how long they've known each other, we just don't know, but he has been charged, Chad, with criminal trespassing and providing a fake name to police. He was released this morning out of something called the Safety Act, but he is facing those criminal charges in an upcoming court hearing, as well as Morgan. We do not know about her physical condition. You saw she looks pretty disheveled there, obviously emotionally. One can assume not doing well. We know that she has been on medication. We don't know if she has been without that medication. We just know we're going to hear more about that hearing tomorrow at 11. And also Brett Lemoyne will bring us the latest updates here at 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10. But again, she was apprehended there just outside of Chicago earlier today. So we'll get an update a little bit later. For right now, we want to just end on a bit of a transition, if you will, and give you a look at the Turkey high temps there because it's not going to be warm on Thursday this Thanksgiving. Oh no, indeed. It's going to be pretty chilly. And so Milwaukee's forecast 32 degrees, but the last time we hit that 32-degree mark was back in 2007. Then we go all the way back to 1931. I remember one Thanksgiving going for a run in shorts. Not going to happen this year. It's going to be chilly, so bundle up if you can. As we say goodbye today, we want to bring in, oh yes, Delaney, because I may not see her on air with you here on our Fox local station before Thanksgiving, but we want to say happy Thanksgiving to you, Delaney, and thank you for all you do to keep us rolling here. So,
thanks, Mary.
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and you have big plans with your family, right?
Yeah, going to Tennessee.
Oh, nice. It'll probably be warmer there.
Yeah, I think a little bit, but not much.
Yeah, well, still, family time.
Yeah, always nice.
Yeah, have an extra scoop of mashed potatoes for us. You're the one who gets us to us. I'm looking here about 10 seconds left. Yeah, give me the countdown as we roll out. Let's do it together. Why not?
5, 4, 3, 2, hit the close.
Yeah, great to have you with us. We'll see you tonight at 4.
Calling some of what she saw troubling in terms of the bathroom and the facilities there. Let's quickly shift gears right now as we're seeing a live event right now out of the Houston area as officials providing an update on tornado damage. Let's listen into this on Live Now.
Rain, torrential rain all at once, and then silence again, and then things started being ripped off the building itself. So it looks like we had a pretty clear line through the woods we've got here into the building, and then it looks like it twisted into the cow pasture behind us there and dropped a lot of trees there. At the end of this, we had a gas leak that was quickly capped. We've got the all clear now. And again, we're so fortunate that no one was injured, and of course, none of our ambulance operations were affected.
Can you talk about the general area and how you guys have heard about the
Right, so I understand Klein Fire next door, they had a fence that went down, but beyond that, I understand they didn't sustain any injuries or anything like that either. So again, it couldn't have been a better path for the tornado to go through our campus. We have 2 outbuildings in the back there. One maintains our fleet of ambulances, and the other one works to clean the ambulances as they come in, resupply them, and get them ready to go out and hit the streets. So neither one of those were affected in any way, shape, or form. So beyond just sort of changing the logistics of getting ambulances on and off the campus, we got really, really lucky.
So can you tell us about that grassy area that's just behind this fleet shelter that is damaged right now? Tell us about that area over there.
We don't own that property. That is, I believe, a cow pasture that's adjacent to our property. It looks to me we've barely been out here because we just got the all clear for the gas leak, that a number of those trees snapped. But again, didn't snap on our side, snapped on their side where there are no major structures. So again, really, really lucky.
Not really the kind of building you want to be in.
No, and they were given, the warning was as ample as it could be, and they tried to make it back to the main admin building, but they just couldn't make it. So they just hunkered down, and like I said, one crouched down under a table, and the other one was hanging onto a rack and was literally just standing there watching the sides of this building just rip apart.
What was that building being used for, and is it going to be difficult for you guys to adapt moving that building's purpose to anywhere else on the property?
That was one of the original buildings on the property, so we just use it for facility maintenance. So it was mainly a storage place, and we had some tools in there. It really wasn't used for anything that was, crucial for the day-to-day operations. So, no, I don't think it'll be that tough for us to find a new place for all those tools.
What's the estimated cost of the damage? Have you guys heard yet?
We have no idea. I mean, again, luckily, most of it seems to be landscaping. I mean, we can get these trees cleared much easier than we could replace a larger building that was more crucial to our operations here, or a life, or an injury. So again, yeah, great path. We're very thankful that this tornado took the path it took.
Where were you?
I was in that building right there, and we were told to get into our designated area for warnings like this, hurricane warnings or tornado warnings. Wasn't really paying attention, returning emails. I went downstairs to our room, and what sounded like hail turned out to just be the shutters dropping. And then all of a sudden, you could feel the pressure drop. And then it just got really, really quiet. And then we're like, oh my gosh, what is that going on out there? So yeah, it went by very, very fast. And then we opened the doors, thankfully. And again, we could open the doors. The front doors were a little damaged, but they were able to be fixed very quickly. And we saw the damage and we're like, oh my gosh, it's just like matchsticks.
What have y'all had reported in the area? Have you heard of any injuries or any other major damage besides right here?
To be honest, we've been so busy dealing with what we have here. We have to make sure that the flow of ambulances on and off the campus happen without delay. We shut down the main entrance